shows. Hunting, yeah. Good evening, everyone. The time is 7:45. I see we have about 300 people in the room already. People are joining us along, and good evening to all of you. For those of you who celebrated Shabbat, Shavua Tov, to all of you, a lovely welcome, and fantastic to see some amazing people on the panel tonight. So, Chris, we've never met. Where in the world are you joining us from?
Howard, I'm actually in Johannesburg tonight, and came up for a meeting tomorrow, and so I'm in Joburg tonight.
Are we treating you to a fantastic Highveld thunderstorm at the moment?
Absolutely, it's wonderful, and it's so nice to see rain. Pity we can't have this in the Kruger Park now.
What has it been like in Kruger? Has it had any rain yet so far in the last month?
Yes, we've actually had some good rain, more than 100 millimeters in the Bergendal and Lower Sabi area, also around Pretoria's Kop. We've had good rain, actually like 7-8 days on end. It's nice, light drizzle, so the place looks green. The park has never looked so nice.
Oh, amazing. Now, Marlon, tell me, am I wearing my hat correctly? How do you know if you've got the hat on? Is it that way or is it that way?
It's looking good. Hopefully you hear me well enough, Howard. I've actually I've got my hat over here, so I can show you. I dressed for the occasion, so it's something like that.
You appear in many of your photographs wearing your hat, so I want to make sure that I've got it as stylishly done as yours. But yours looks a little more cowboy than bush.
No, this is a proper bush hat out of so they call it Kruger out of Australia. I actually got it 2 days ago. My fourth one, so I'm definitely, it's practical because I think Chris, you'll know as well, on the Dove, I spend a lot of time out in pretty rugged areas, very hot, usually late dry season, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and you spend a lot of time in the sun, so you need a good hat to cover the back of your neck, cover your face. And so it definitely serves a good purpose.
Are you suggesting that Robert and I need a little more coverage?
Perhaps not. I don't know how much a hat. Maybe a little bit something else there. But you're looking good, Howard. You're looking good.
Thank you. I spent the day in the sun. Robert, welcome. Lovely to see you. Where do you join us from?
I'm also in Johannesburg in this wonderful storm. So yeah, I wish I was in the Pilanesberg or down in the Eastern Cape or down in Kruger right now. But I think being in Joburg is where we are. So that's what it's going to be for tonight.
So when it is lightning in the parks and it's dry, the dangers of bushfires are actually quite big. I seem to remember about 2 years ago, Rob, in Pilanesberg, there were major fires throughout Pilanesberg, but I believe it helps the grass regenerate and it's actually good for the environment.
Well, Pilanesberg this year has actually had more fires. I think about almost 70% of the park has burnt over the last 2 years. So we had hectic fires this year, but I was up there 10 days ago and it's looking really good. So the green shoots are through, and if they get this rain tonight, I can tell you, I hope it goes all the way there because it's desperate for rain. It's very, very dry, but green shoots are coming through. It's probably a bit like Kruger. We've had a little bit of rain, but it's looking great at the moment.
So Terry, as the arbiter of all good taste, Marlon seems to have the clothes, I've got the hat. Are we doing okay?
You're doing all right, Howie. Nice. I expected you to be in some kind of bush get-up. I just wasn't sure to what degree it would go.
I just couldn't get my Land Rover into my study over here.
I'm sure you tried.
Nadav Driver, why do you not have proper attire for this evening?
I do. It's just you can't really see, but this is my latest sighting shirt.
Okay. And I see there's later sightings paraphernalia behind you as well.
Yeah, because I couldn't fit the logo in the camera in the shot.
So as they say, always be selling.
Always.
That's
amazing. No, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be on this webinar.
I think we've got an amazing evening planned tonight because we've got the big names in wildlife in South Africa. We've got two sets of people's favorite lodges as well. And it's the one thing right through lockdown, we've been saying to people, what's the first thing you want to do when you get out of lockdown or when you're able to travel? And no one said, get on an aeroplane and go to the beaches of Mykonos. They all said, I want to go into the bush. and that's what makes South African special. Well, I think everyone likes the bush. I don't know, Yolan, if you can turn on your camera. Let's see if we can see you this evening. Hello.
All right. Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
Hi, good evening.
Some of you, not all. Hi, everyone.
Yolan, tell me, does everyone like animals and the bush besides for Cape Townians?
If only. I think our lives would be much easier if that was the case, but not everybody does. Not everybody sees it the same way we do, but that's our jobs, and our jobs is to make it as appealing for everyone as we possibly can.
So you're from the Endangered Wildlife Trust. Like, what are the big animals on the list at the moment?
Well, I think one of the things about the Endangered Wildlife Trust is we don't just work on the obvious big five and the sort of predators and carnivores. We've actually got quite a large focus of our work on all the small things that people don't think about. So we work on amphibians, we're working on golden moles, we work on reptiles, we work on cycads, we work on quite a few endangered tree species. So, and we're starting to partner with some organizations working on butterfly conservation. So it's quite a wide variety, but I think that's important because the small stuff counts as much as the big stuff.
So, Chris, talking of butterflies, I was in Kruger in February, about a month before lockdown, or a few weeks before I went into lockdown, and I was there for the butterfly migration, which I had never heard of before, didn't understand what was happening. Just you would drive for kilometers and kilometers and just tens of millions of butterflies. Was that unique to this year, or is that a regular occurrence?
It actually happens quite regularly, but it's not always the same numbers that comes through, but it's actually spectacular if you can see it. And I would always recommend that people come to the park in that period if they can.
Marlon, have you ever seen the butterfly migration? I know you've seen the wildebeest migration. The butterfly migration is very different.
I have. I've seen them come through from Mdluli. I've seen them fly over Johannesburg, and so I've seen traces of it. I haven't fully studied it or captured it, but I've definitely seen bits and pieces of it.
So now, Terry, you're doing marketing for Mdluli. Is the game reserve, or is wildlife in your blood? Is that something you grew up with?
Yeah, sure. Many trips to the rondavels at Skakuza as a kid, thrown into the back of the combi. Very much so. We'll talk a little later about people that maybe are a little bit tired of the rondavels and ready for a little bit of a nudge up. But yeah, surely, I mean, you know, growing up as a South African in Joburg, that was the place we would go at least once a year.
So I was mentioning now that I was in Kruger Park in February, and I hadn't stayed in the rondavels in a few years because Robert, I've been frequenting Bakubung very regularly over the last few years, and I was actually a little surprised and shocked at the quality and state of the rondavels. I know, Nadav, you were just in Kruger now, but you know there seem to be beds pushed into every nook and cranny. You know, in the one place we stayed in Lower Sabi, there was a shower in what was probably previously the cupboard, and the lounge had 3 beds in plus furniture, and everything just seemed thrown on top of each other, like almost complete. The Yiddish word is tummeldick. So Nadav, you were just there. How did it seem to you?
Yeah, I mean, I was just there. The accommodation seemed fine. You know, it's also hard to judge because you know, the park's been closed for whatever, like 4 or 5 months. So yeah, like I think they're finding their feet again. They're trying to just repair what was damaged during lockdown. So yeah, I couldn't really judge that much. But on the whole, you know, we did a lot of accommodation to Kruger, and people know what to expect. So yeah, like we barely really get complaints about the rondavels and stuff like that.
Marlon, in a normal year, how many days do you spend in the bush?
A lot. A typical year would probably be about 140 odd days on the road. That could be both local as an African, South African. I go all the way up to Kenya, Tanzania, even Central African Republic. And then I do a few international destinations. So as a company, we go all the way from Svalbard to Patagonia and just about everything in between. So quite varied. Next year, due to the compounding effect from 2020 into 2021, I'll be away probably about 180, 190 days, about 100, just shy of 180 days within the tax bracket.
No, in fact, let's talk about Svalbard, because that's very unusual that anyone would actually mention it. So for people who don't know, Svalbard is one of the most northernmost inhabited places in the world, in the Arctic Circle. And in fact, when I was in Tromsø in the north of Norway watching the Northern Lights, there's this boat that stops in Tromsø and takes you all the way up to Svalbard. What did you do in Svalbard?
So I haven't been up to Svalbard. We, as a company, we have 8 traveling guides that guide and host guests across the world with a focus on Africa. But as a company, we visit Svalbard for polar bears and Arctic wildlife. But the main draw card and attraction is polar bears. So you'll go out on an icebreaker expedition ship for about 10 or 12 days and just go in search of these magnificent animals that talk about animals in danger and in trouble. That certainly is one of them. That's feeling the effect of what's happening around the world right now. But yeah, so it's how we get up there. We take guests up there and show them the beauty of nature.
What is the right time of year to go see the polar bears?
We focus on May. So that's the time that you have to time it right, especially with the weather and the ice. If the ice is too thick, you end up, you need really big boats to break through the ice to travel and traverse. And if there's too little ice, the polar bears don't move around enough, or they might be hibernating. So you'll find the peak season is around May and June. So
I see in the chat that Joe Olsen says, I was in Svalbard in 2012 and saw 28 polar bears, which must be just the most.
That's a healthy number. That's a lot of polar bears.
I went through Alaska, and in fact, one of the interesting ways you can go through Alaska is via train, in a glass dome train with game rangers on the train. And you see lots of moose along the way, and you see brown bear running through the snow next to the train as you go. And you also go see the whales, and which is an absolutely amazing experience on a boat. The killer whales, the big orcas, go straight for you, and then they dive under the boat and come up on the other side. It's absolutely beautiful.
We got to take the opportunity to get out to these places. I think we'll probably hear more about that. But these animals and these environments are under so much threat, and it's so worth, even if it's a bucket list experience, like a once in a lifetime. Go up to the Arctic and go see the wildlife, or the Antarctic, or wherever it is. But if it involves a bit of travel, ultimately it really is worth it.
So, Rob, you've got lodges in many places in South Africa, but you've got 1 or 2 out of South Africa as well.
Not so much lodges, but we represented in Namibia, and we obviously in Swakopmund, which is probably one of the playgrounds of Southern Africa. I mean, Vic Falls competes quite closely, but certainly in Southern Africa, Swakopmund is one of the most amazing places to go to, and a different kind of wildlife there too. I mean, there we talk about the little 5, not the big 5, and we have those adventures in the desert, which is an absolutely awesome experience. And then going up north, but those are more, no lodges, just hotels in Gabon and Ghana. Which keep us rather busy. In fact, if Ghana is probably one of the places right now that's the most happening compared to South Africa.
So, Rob, actually, I think we should tell people a little about going to Swakopmund, because Swakopmund is one of the most magical places in the world. Not only is it this tiny little German village almost on the coast in Namibia, but it's full of little pastry shops and German coffee shops. And you go quad biking through the dunes and surfing through the dunes, and you go out at night and you're in the middle of nowhere, and you can take day trips to see the flamingos not far from there, and some of the largest sand dunes in the world.
100%. And I was quite lucky. I actually, I lived there for 3.5 years. And so I've explored the whole area and the moon landscape, and going out into the moon landscape, which is about probably 10 kilometers inland, which looks like they call it the moon landscape, because effectively it looks like what we envisage the moon to be. And you go out there, you have these amazing dinners in the middle of the desert, you quad biking, as you said, sandboarding, cruises with the seals jumping on the boats, the pelicans on the boats. I mean, it's just an absolutely phenomenal experience. And it's 2 hours away from Johannesburg. It's and guess what? It's open. They open the same rules as South Africa now. So it's quite a quick destination to get to, and flights are going. I tell you, it is absolutely. It's a country that is unspoilt, and if you drive between Swakopmund and Sossusvlei, it's an experience that you'll never forget. I mean, it takes a different take on wildlife and scenery and surroundings, which is awesome.
In fact, on the road to Sossusvlei, I was driving along, and there were gemsbok busy running along with my car along the road as I did that.
Yeah, and you get the odd kudu in that area too, and they get lost. And the desert elephant came through about just before lockdown. Strangely, the desert elephants actually came through and into the town of Swakopmund and out the other side, which was quite a fascinating experience and a bit worrying for a lot of the people there. So I tell you, it's amazing. I've been lucky enough to be there when it's raining, and you just can't believe the contrast that happened the next day once it's rained in the desert. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
So the time has just gone 2 minutes past 8. Good evening to everyone. So fantastic to have you back. For those of you who missed Thursday night's webinar, which was on whistleblowers with Mandy Wiener, please do yourself a favor, go onto YouTube, go watch. It was absolutely astounding. Bianca Goodson, who blew the whistle on Trillion, told some of the most amazing stories you've ever heard. Andrew Feinstein, who blew the whistle on the arm steel, he was on our show, and Mandy Wiener was absolutely spectacular. So if you missed it on Thursday evening, please go onto the Jewish Reports channel on YouTube. Just type in the SA Jewish Report, and you'll see Thursday night's webinar there, and you really should not miss it at all. But tonight, we've got an amazing array of people with some fantastic things that we're going to be talking about on a topic that I think South Africans love the most. What really brings out the best in our country and our continent, and that is this amazing experience of wildlife that we have. And we've gathered an amazing array of people this evening to talk about it, but we want to hear a little about you people busy watching. So we would love you to post in the chat. I see we've got people watching from San Diego, lots of people in Israel, some people in Canada have posted. So please let us know where you are in the world. Please use the chat section to talk to each other. So you'll notice at the bottom of your screen, as we explained during the start of all of these webinars, is 2 buttons. The one button says chat. So if you want to chat amongst yourself, if you want to tell us where you are, if you want to comment about what's happening, please post into the chat section, and all of the people on our panel will be watching the chat section as well to see what you're talking about. But if you have any questions that you would specifically like to pose to any of the people on the panel, please click the Q&A. That's what it's there, and we're going to try and get through as many people as possible. We really want this to be a conversation, a dialogue. So please feel free to make use of all the facilities that we provide to you. If you're watching on YouTube, and I know there are hundreds and hundreds of people busy watching us at the moment on YouTube, please do us a favor. Click the like and subscribe button. We're nearly at 1,000. We need to just get over that 1,000 mark subscribers onto YouTube, because magical things then happen to us. We get onto people's feeds. So please, just as a favor, while you're watching, just go click the like and subscribe button. We'd really, really appreciate that. So this is our 59th webinar since we started lockdown, what, about 210 odd days ago, something like that. And before we begin, there are a few housekeeping things we want to tell you about. First of all, on controls this evening is Danny Kadar. Danny, you turn on your camera, wave at us. Danny, those are very nice glasses, but will we be seeing them again?
Please God, hopefully not. The procedure should go well, everyone. On Tuesday, I am going for laser surgery. So you'll see my handsome face more clearer in our next webinar.
So Danny, that's all dependent on whether you passed your COVID test from when Friday.
That is correct.
Have we got the results back yet?
I have not yet, Howard. I'm looking at my phone anxiously to see if it's negative or positive. So yes, I'm waiting for the results, but it was actually not such a bad experience. A bit unpleasant, but 5 minutes of my time, and I'm happy I've done it. Actually, tick off my list to do.
Well, when you get your negative COVID test, jump on an airplane, go somewhere, take advantage of the fact that you've got 72 hours to get on an airplane, please.
Fantastic. I'll visit one of these lodges over here.
You don't need a COVID test for any of these lodges. But just a reminder to people, we keep on sending out, we have a shofar blowing competition. So during the run up to the Jewish New Year, we asked people, and we had about 60 entries into our shofar blowing competition, which is like a ram's horn for people who don't know. And we blow it as a wake up call to prayer during the month before Jewish New Year. And people also blow kudu horns. We had a few entries of people blowing kudu horns in this, but you can go vote because we are determined to find the best shofar blower in all of South Africa. So please, Danny, tell us, where do we go and actually vote for the best shofar blower in South Africa?
So Howard, I am posting the link right now in the chat, and that is where you go. It's right there in the chat section. You can
so it's
and go.
It's shofarcompetition.co.za. That's fairly easy to remember. But we've got a few things for people to vote on, because we also have Jewish Achiever Awards coming up on the 29th of November. And you can vote for your favorite candidate. More than 10,000 people have already voted for Jewish Achiever Awards. So, Danny, if I want to go vote for someone in the humanitarian category or the community service category, or on the entrepreneurs or the woman in leadership or business in leadership, where do I go?
Very
Tell
simple. It's www.jaa or Jewish Achievers 2020.co.za. So www.jaa2020.co.za. But I'm also going to be posting that link in the chat section now for everyone to see.
And Danny, two more things. We're helping people who've gone through a really tough time during the COVID experience. The one thing we're doing is we say, if you're in business and if you have a question for any of the titans of industry, you want to ask about marketing, you want to ask about client acquisition, about accounting, about finance, about human resources, about any topic at all, let us help you. Send us your question, and we will go track down whoever you want, and we will get them to answer your question for you. And so we're calling this the Titans of Industry, Ask the Titans of Industry. And please, Danny, post in the chat now if you have any questions to ask anyone, not just the four luminaries on the screen who are Dawn Nathan Jones and Brian Joffe and Stephen Kosov. You tell us who you want to ask a question to. We'll go find the individual and we'll get that question answered for you. And the final thing that we're going to tell you about tonight, because Danny's posted the link onto the chat section for that, the final thing that we're going to tell you about tonight is, in fact, we're trying to get our community back to work. So many people have lost jobs during this period. They don't know where to turn to. So because, in fact, we control the Jewish Report newspaper, we are saying, send us your CV. We'll give you free advertising in our newspaper. We put out our call within a day. The first 30-odd people who replied, free advertising, and we're going to continue to do this. So if you're looking for work, Danny, post into the chat, please. Let us give you free advertising. Let's help advertise your services to the entire South Africa, and let's get you back to work as well. I think those are four amazing initiatives. Danny, we'll see you a little later. Tonight's broadcast has in fact been sponsored by three people we're enormously grateful for. The first is Discovery Bank. Fantastic to see you on board again, and as well as the Legacy Hotel Group. Rob, thank you so much for helping to sponsor tonight. We're going to be talking lots about some of your properties this evening. And Terry Garfinkel, so wonderful to have you, because the Mdluli Safari Lodge is one of the newest and most spectacular lodges in the country. And we're going to be talking lots about how it came about. Chris, we're going to be talking to you about where Mdluli is, how it came into existence, and what is the experience in a tented safari camp in the middle of the Kruger Park. So we're going to talk all about that in a few minutes' time. And before we begin, let us just thank our first sponsor of this evening.
Get rewarded for managing your money well. Enjoy the best credit card interest rate in South Africa. as little as prime minus 2% by improving your Vitality Money status. That's shared value banking. There's never been a better time to upgrade your bank. Download the Discovery Bank app and sign up in minutes. Or go to discovery.co.za.
Our next guest is a safari guide and photographer who co-owns a wildlife travel company in South Africa called Wilde-eye. Please welcome Marlon du Toit.
Marlon, not everyone gets introduced by Jimmy Fallon. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was an amazing opportunity. I got a chance to go into the show last year, and one of the guests on the show, an amazing opportunity to share what I do, the love I have for wildlife photography, conservation, and just a great to be able to have that platform to share on.
So what's it like walking into studio? You're one of the top late night shows in the world. What's that whole experience like?
Amazing. It is nerve-wracking. I've done a few lives. I've done a couple of times the NBC, the Today Show, the morning show. I've been a guest on Martha Stewart live shows in the past, and so I've done a couple of these. I think the Tonight Show was probably the more intimidating one, with the band introducing you and quite a big live audience, and obviously Jimmy Fallon, who's he's a big personality. I got to meet him before the event, which was nice to break the ice a little bit. But yeah, it certainly is a daunting experience in the beginning. But I promise you, you have about 4.5 minutes on the segment, and it flies by. Like, by the end of it, you have no idea what you spoke about. You can't recall a thing. You just hope that you said the right things, and you kind of just go with it live. If you go watch the whole segment, it flies by in seconds.
So tell us about Wilde-eye. What is it, and how did it come into existence?
Yeah, so Wilde-eye is a company I co-own. We're based in Johannesburg, in Fourways, and we've just in our 10th year at the moment. And we do photographic safaris. I'd say that's our what we specialize in, and that can be in small groups. So we pre-plan and market small group safaris. So say 3 to 6 people per safari, nice and intimate. Typically 1 or 2 guides like myself on the trip with you, but it's not photographic in the sense that we only look at the photographs. We approach it in a very holistic and natural way. I think that's something that separates us from a lot of people in the photographic industry. It's not just about the photograph. We want our guests to leave with having an experience, and this could be in South Africa, in Zambia, or an international destination. We work with only the very best local camps. We work with extremely good local guides. So guests come and they spend 6 or 10 or 12 days with us, and they leave. Our logo, our phrase, our catchphrase that we use is "Change the way you see the world," and that really is something we stand by. And a lot of our guests feel like they have experienced on these safaris. And it could be a small group safari, it could be a private guided safari, which is quite an exclusive experience. We go one-on-one with the guide. The entire trip is custom planned from the flights, often private chartered flights across Africa. And it's a very good experience, Howard.
Where's the most obscure place you've ever led a group?
Man, I'll tell you, so earlier this year, it was actually one of the last trips I did before lockdown. I went to the Himalayas to track snow leopards, to try and photograph one, but just to see one would have been, very good in the end. And it was a 2-week trip, just over about 16 days, and all the way up into the Himalayas in India, an area called Leh. And it was unreal. I have very few words. It's difficult to find words to describe this experience. It's remote. If you've ever been to that area or flown over the Himalayas, it's just
Leh
incredible.
is next to Lek and Ladakh. It's actually
in Ladakh,
yeah. It's where the Chinese and the Indians are busy fighting at the moment.
Yes, yeah. So it's on the border. I mean, it's a military base. Leh it's literally just military wherever you look. So very strict policies in place and travel procedures and airport security. It's an absolute nightmare. But once you get there, I promise you've never seen scenery like that. Unbelievably cold. I'm talking minus 25 to minus 35. The hottest it got was about minus 15 or so, minus 12. But you stay in a homestay. So we stay with local, in a local village type setup. Just in a concrete room. There's a mattress on the floor. My guest and I, we had an option to share. He had the heater. Well, it's a little furnace, but the wood burns out within 25 minutes. So I let him have his room, and man, I've never been so cold in my life. I promise you. I had Canada Goose jackets. I had the best boots. I had insulated layers, merino, everything, unreal. Like I was kitted. I think my gear before the trip ran up to about 45,000 Rand, just prepping in terms of gear for this experience. And I was still cold.
Did you see the leopards? That's the most important question.
So on day 9, we got a glimpse of a snow leopard. The day before we arrived, they had a mother and cub. They killed an ibex and they were feeding. They finished the morning we arrived. Just bad luck. The one sighting, we turned around. We traveled quite far. As we turned around, another vehicle went past. They had a sighting. And then right at the end, on the last day, we had a sighting of a cat. It was too far to photograph. The Himalayas is immense. Imagine looking for a leopard in the Drakensberg, and you're looking up at the Drakensberg at these, towering cliffs, and you're trying to find a leopard. And that's similar, except now these peaks are mostly snow-capped, and you're trying to find a white leopard and you're just scanning distances, anything from 500 to 2 kilometers, maybe even further, with binoculars and spotting scopes, and unreal experience. And so much so that I'm leading a group back there. It was going to be next year, but due to COVID and what's happening there at the moment, it's moved into 2022, but really excited to get back into the Himalayas. Wild experience.
So it does remind me that I did an elephant back safari in Nepal, looking for tigers. And I said to my elephant guide, I said, what are our chances of seeing tigers today? And he said, oh, very good. And I said, oh, really? Have you seen tigers this week? And he thought, no, not this week. I said, have you seen tigers this month? I said, no, not this month. I said, when last did you see a tiger? He said, about a year and a half ago. But my chances that day were fairly good, apparently. Never got to see my tiger in the wild on an elephant back.
Howard, I've learned to not ask that question. So typically we arrive, we are guided by local guides. So we'll get taken care of. I don't drive the vehicle myself. I'm in the back teaching, interacting with our clients. And one of the first things I used to ask when I arrive is, how has the game viewing been? And kind of the drive from the airport back to camp. And some guys are just far too honest. And they'll just say, oh, it hasn't been that great. But, or you should have been here yesterday because, we just saw this or that. Or it's not really the right time of year. You should come in October. And you're just like, oh, why didn't I even ask? Now my guests are set up with this expectation of, well, they haven't seen anything. So, yeah, don't ask. Just take it as it comes.
Now, you have become one of the top wildlife photographers, I'm about to say, in the world. And wow. we're going to look at some of your photographs, and you're going to take us through and explain what we're busy looking at. So this photograph, Marlon, who on earth is this person in the picture?
I have no idea who that alien is. I've got no idea.
That youngster is you, and that beautiful photograph is taken by me in Singita.
It's like a decade ago.
That's lovely, but one of my favorite pictures is this one that I took of you in the rear view of your Jeep.
Was I busy working here, or was I busy modeling? I'm not quite sure what I was doing.
But let's look at better photographs. Tell us about this picture.
Man, this is the Himalayas, and I included it in the selection just because it's so different. And to give you an idea for those who enjoy photography, this is a panorama, 2 photographs with a 16mm stitched together. And it's literally impossible to give you a sense of scale of a place like the Himalayas. It's just too vast. You can see for kilometers on kilometers, and it was snowing at the time. It was probably about -25, and it was, if you don't have sunglasses, you are buggered because it's just so bright. But the air is clean. You're at 4,500 meters above sea level. It's just an incredible experience, and I just wanted to showcase that it's a land of stark beauty, and this is the kind of terrain where you'll set yourself up in looking for snow leopards. Now you imagine trying to see something that is perfectly designed not to be seen, and you're looking for it in this landscape. But that's the allure. You know, the word safari is adventure or journey, and although it's not a classic African safari, that's what it's about. It's about, you know, looking for a snow leopard. If you don't see one, it's okay. You can go back. But if you do see it, they call them the ghost of the Himalayas, the gray ghost. And that's exactly it. You don't see it. It allows you to see it. And it's a very special experience. And this photograph is one I really love from that area.
So talking of bad weather or cold weather, talk to us about this lion that looks like he's in the middle of, is it a storm or a fire?
Storm. This is actually, it's a lion called Scar, and Africa's most famous lion at the moment. He is a magnificent animal. And as a wildlife photographer, Howard, what you want is, you know, I don't know if you find yourself on, let's use Instagram as an example, where you just end up scrolling through photo after photo after photo. And all you ever do then is it becomes very, you become very desensitized to wildlife photographs because there's just so much of it out there. And due to the speed of the cards and the amount of photographs you can take, people just end up, you know, sharing photo after photo, and you consume it that way. It's seldom that a photograph makes you stop. But as a wildlife photographer, I look for elements. The more elements I can add into a frame or behavior, the more interesting the photograph for the viewer. So ultimately, I want to capture, in that photograph, we were sitting with this beautiful male lion, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'll never forget it, our vehicle just started shaking. A storm hit us. This is in Masai Mara in Kenya. And a storm hit from the back like a shockwave. It just smashed into the car. Everything started shaking. It started pelting down with rain. The wind was howling. And then those white specks that you see in front of them, that's hailstones. It started hailing. And the wind, you can look at the branches in front of this male lion. There was branches blowing in the front of him. It was a moment I'll never forget. And he was running for cover. Just trying to get the shot through the most intense rainstorm I've ever been in was a miracle in itself. But yeah, a photograph that, just because he's such a well-known lion, but that kind of setting is very special, and a photograph I really love.
Now, Marlon, Scar's made quite an impact on your life. Can I see your arm?
You may. He so this is a tattoo of Scar. You can see it there. Let me get it into view. He's an amazing animal. I had the tattoo done a couple of years ago. I've been watching him since 2012, and he's remarkable in the sense that male lions would live for in the wild 12 years or so, 13 years, but they wouldn't be with their pride for all that time because they can't keep the pride. They can't keep up the dominance. There's new male lions that come in and challenge and kick them out or kill them. And Scar is still a pride male. He's still with the lionesses, and he's about 14 years old now. So he still is a pride male. It's almost unheard. I've never heard of anything like that. He is injured, and he's not doing that well. I'm actually going to the Mara for the first 2 weeks in December with some guests, and I'm hoping I get to see him for an old time's sake. And that would be 8 years of watching this male lion. This is him, that right there. And if you look at that eye, it's an amazing. He's got a presence about him. He's not a social animal. He doesn't interact well with other lions. He's quite aggressive. He'll have a go at a lioness if she comes too close. You know, he's a real almost textbook in terms of the character from the Lion King. You know, half of his face is blackened out and injured. He's actually, if you look at this picture, on his left flank, you'll see a little protrusion. And that's actually from a Maasai spear. When they were younger, him and his brother raided a cattle village raided Maasai and killed a cow. and the Maasai came out, killed his brother with a spear, and speared him. He had a spear all the way through him, in the one end, sticking out on the other end. And he made it back into the reserve, and vets managed to dart him and fix him up, and he survived. He's just got so much character that he's a special animal, and I don't often get attached because I travel so vastly, but he has really stood out to me as a unique male lion.
How long do lions generally live for?
In the wild, lioness is a little bit longer, say up to about 12 or 13, 14, 15. It all depends on what a quality of life they've had, prey availability, etc. Male lions a little bit less. They have a hard life. They live for the day they can take over pride. That can be 4, 5, 6 years of age, and then they have 3 or 4 years with a pride in general before new young males come in. And it's good that way. There's no real excessive breeding with related offspring, and it's nature's way. But once they're out of the pride, 9, 10 years old, it's a hard life. They're always in another male lion's territory. They're always looking for a meal. They're always on the run. And male lions are fierce, so they will pursue a rogue male lion or an intruding male lion to the death. They're incredibly aggressive. So the old male lions in general don't do that well and don't last that long while they've left, after they've left the pride.
So Marlon, this next picture is probably one of the most remarkable wildlife pictures I've ever seen.
It's pretty wild, Howard. It's a photograph that I took in the Masai Mara, the Great Migration. It takes place every year. An incredible annual event, and I'm pretty sure some of the listeners would have experienced that in the past. And this is what you see as the head of an adult mare, an adult zebra, in the head of one of the biggest crocodiles I've ever seen, in the mouth. And half of her neck is already down his throat. So it wasn't just her head, it was most of her neck as well. And he swallowed it whole. It's unreal to see how big those crocodiles are. They weigh over a ton, 6 meters in length, and they're able to do this. And it's just, I think it's the shock factor. It's the, it just hits you in your face, and it just makes you, is it alive? Like, where's the rest of it? And anytime you can take a photograph that stops the viewer and makes them just ask questions or like feel shock or horror, it's a good thing.
There's certainly some horror, and we're going to be seeing that in some of Nadav's video, but there's sheer beauty in this image.
Thank you. This is actually taken during lockdown. We got special permits to go through to Sabi in the greater Kruger area, the Sabi Sands Game Reserve. And we were with this male leopard, and he was fast asleep. He had a kudu carcass in the area. And I've always wanted a photograph like this, but it's very difficult to get. You don't often see this kind of photo. And we were with him, and I'm aware of how to photograph like this. It's not multiple frames; it's one frame. And he eventually, hyenas disturbed him, and he climbed up onto a termite mound. And I was like, man, this is the moment. We didn't have guests, so I could focus on my photography. I had a tripod set up, slow exposure, all the gear. We use I had a special light to fill the foreground with light. And then he got up and moved off of the mound, and I was like, no, before I could take a photo. And then the hyenas chased him up this fallen ebony, and it was just perfect. In terms, even the Milky Way has to be in the right position, and so everything just came together for this beautiful photograph captured on a Sony A7R4, which has got a 60 million pixel sensor. So in terms of, if you think of image quality, it just all came together so well for me with a photograph like this. Very unique photo.
Absolutely astounding. And this one, which is the image that we've used for tonight, how on earth does one get a photograph like that?
It's following them at night. It's actually, South Africans are spoiled if we go to places like the Timbavati or the Sabi Sands, Madikwe, where we can follow predators after dark with a spotlight. It's not really something you can do in many other parks. Tanzania, Kenya, you don't really get to do night drives there. And making use of the opportunity, this again was taken at Sabi a few months ago. And just a gorgeous female leopard after dark, backlit with a spotlight. Very difficult to photograph, not all that easy. You got to know what you're doing with your gear. And, I just love these profile silhouetted shots after dark, very eerie. And if you look close, you can actually still see a red tongue, which is great for a bit of a flash of color inside of the frame, and certainly an image that I love taking.
We are going to ask people who are busy watching to comment on some of these photographs as we go through. So please use your chat section to actually comment about them. Now, we've seen Scar. This is clearly not Scar. Scar had a scar down his face, but there's something wrong with this lion's mouth.
Yeah, they're not 100% sure of how he ended up like this, and Dove will know this lion as well. He also occupied the southern Sabi Sands and walked in reserves like Lion Sands, Sabi, Kirkman's, and he was just wild looking. And again, it's, as I said earlier, if you can take a photograph, especially nowadays, that makes people stop scrolling or pay attention, and this is that kind of photograph because of that tooth and the attention and the portraiture, that look in the eyes. But that tooth is just wild, and it actually, he'd been like this for 2 or 3 years, with this tooth hanging out like that. So every time you see him in this state, and it just made for incredible wildlife photography. Whether he was in pain or not, I'm sure it healed up to some extent. They think he was kicked by a zebra, but maybe Dove will know the truth. I've heard rumors. However he came to be like this, I'm happy, because it makes for a great photograph. And sadly, he died a couple of years ago, so he's not around anymore.
Now, looking at this one, you clearly could not have taken this one in South Africa. What are we looking at?
This is a jaguar. It is an unbelievable animal. For those watching, a jaguar, I've always dreamt of seeing a jaguar. And because it's such a mystical animal, and I went there for the first time in 2018 with guests, and I've been back quite a few times.
Where's
since.
there?
In the Pantanal. Sorry, my apologies.
Gotcha.
In Brazil. The Pantanal is the largest wetland in the world, and it's right adjacent to the Amazon. So it's essentially the Amazon's wetland. And in this particular area called Porto Joffre in the northern Pantanal, it's become the hub for viewing and photographing jaguars. And seeing my first one, you never think that you see them as relaxed as this or as close as this. And to spend time with this cat, if I give you an idea, a big male leopard would weigh, they seldom get over 90 kilograms, perhaps 75, 80 kilograms. That's a pretty big male leopard. And a jaguar, the heaviest jaguar ever weighed, was 158 kilograms that I have, that's been weighed on record. Think about that, 160 kilograms of jaguar. That's 2 leopards, 2 big leopards, and just an unreal creature. They have so much presence. And this particular one, you see, I have an affinity for animals that have some character, and his name is Pirata, or Pirate, because he can't really see through his right eye. He's developed an injury, and only a bit of his eye he can actually use. And he's a scary animal. When he comes down into the water like this, they hunt caiman, which is a type of alligator species in the Amazon. And they hunt caiman in the water. They'll swim 6, 8, or 10 hours at a time hunting and looking for caiman. And the crocodiles can be 3 meters in length, and they'll jump on that caiman, deliver a swift bite to the back of the neck, and put it out of its misery within seconds. It's unreal. They have the strongest jaws of any of the big cats. And if you see the size of their head, imagine a lioness with spots and a bigger head, and then you have a jaguar. It's a crazy animal, and a photograph that I just love.
I've been trekking through the Amazon on a few occasions, and I'm so happy I didn't see anything like that. But here is, in fact, with a caiman.
With a caiman. This is a female jaguar, and they get up to about 110 kilos, 105, 110, so still very big. And dragging a caiman out of the water. She'd been feeding in the water initially, and eventually a day or two later, she decided to drag it up into the bank. The smaller ones immediately go into the riverine vegetation, but the bigger crocs are quite heavy. This is probably about a 2.5, close to 3 meter caiman. And you can't think, and they kill them in the water. It's unreal. They'll sometimes submerge themselves fighting a caiman for 10, 15 seconds underwater. You have no idea what goes on underneath there. I've seen it. And they just pop up with the caiman in their mouth. And as you can see, I had a great experience there.
That looks like you got it straight out of a Disney movie.
It's a female jaguar, very aggravated by a male. The male wanted to mate, and she wanted none of it. And just an incredible reaction. They have very long teeth. And as you can see on this far longer in proportion to the head than any cat I've seen. And just in display, it was very shadowy, as a lot of this dappled light falling on her. And her expression is just unreal. It's one of my favorite photographs at the moment.
Amazing picture.
Thank you.
Tell us what we're looking at, or what he's looking at.
This is actually the first time I went to Monopools. Monopools is known for wild dogs, African wild dog or painted wolf.
So Monopools is in Zimbabwe, is that correct?
Zimbabwe, yeah. So I went up to northern Zimbabwe to Monopools in 2012 for the first time, with an intent and focus on the wild dogs. And we found this pack, a mate of mine and myself, in a riverbed, and they were about 60 meters away. And we started, we didn't want to startle them. So I got my backpack out and my camera. My camera, the lens I use is massive. And back then I had a lens that weighed almost 5.5 kilos, just the lens itself. It doesn't sound that heavy, but it's a fair weight. And so I started, both myself and Morkel, my friend, crawling literally on our arms like this on the riverbed, camera in one hand, crawling along to this pack. We covered about 50 meters. And then all of a sudden, what we assumed was the alpha male, he got up and he started walking straight towards us. He was about 15 meters away, and he just got up, came at us, and he was growling. So this very low, quite a menacing growl. And I hadn't, at that point, had a lot of experience with wild dogs on foot. And he just kept coming. And so I lay down. I took a few very, very great, very beautiful shots of him coming. But I was I had a lot of experience in animals, but my mate hadn't. And so he was quite nervous. And it's a big animal. And he just kept coming, and eventually he lay down about 5 meters away, watching us. And that's the shot I got, just in this beautiful sandy riverbed with those big ears, so characteristic of wild dogs, just looking straight at us. And we had this magical encounter, like truly life-changing encounter with this wild dog for about 20 minutes. And eventually he got up, moved away, and the pack ran off into the thickets and disappeared. But I'll never forget that day, Howard. And it's cemented.
You're lucky to be alive. You are lucky to be alive.
That's one of my mild encounters. I won't go into too much detail. I think my wife's watching.
We're actually going to ask people about some of the encounters a little later. Before we look at the next picture, I'd actually ask Yolan to actually comment, because Yolan, growing up and going to the Kruger Park once or twice a year, you never ever saw wild dog. And now whenever you go, it's almost a certainty that you're going to see wild dog. What has happened? Have in fact we brought wild dog away from extinction, or is it now a common animal in our parks?
Howard, I'm pleased to hear that you guys are seeing more and more wild dogs. And I think there's a couple of things to say there. I think one of the things is that I think there's a much more greater awareness for wild dogs. We've been running for the last 15 years the Wild Dogs Photographic Survey in the Kruger Park, where we encourage people to take photographs of dogs and submit them to us. And that's how we've been getting reasonably accurate census numbers on the numbers of dogs in the Kruger. And I think by encouraging people over a 7 or 8 month period to send all of their photographs of wild dog sightings to us, it certainly has raised an awareness of wild dogs and an appreciation for them. So I think there's a greater awareness. But certainly the numbers of wild dogs in the Kruger Park have stabilized in the last 10 years. And nationally, the numbers have actually stabilized throughout the whole country. But they are very conservation dependent, and they remain one of the most persecuted carnivores, certainly on the African continent, unfortunately. But I think the other thing is that the wild dogs tend to prefer the South Park part of the park. There haven't been naturally occurring wild dog populations that are stable in the north. So obviously, if you tend to visit the south part of the park, mostly you are going to see wild dogs. we've got permanent staff based in that area and have had for the last 10 years looking after the dogs. And so I think that also does play quite a good role. If we know that the dogs have been persecuted, snared, or poisoned, we've got staff on site within a matter of hours. So I think all of those things have certainly contributed to the stabilized packs the numbers of packs that you're seeing in the Kruger Park.
Because probably 20 years ago, you had to go to Shluwe and Umfolozi in order to see wild dog. And now they certainly are much more common.
Absolutely. And certainly in Kruger, where there's a concerted effort, there are species of special concern to sandparks. And Kruger and the APNR reserves in the area have really put an enormous amount of effort into conserving the dogs and treating them as a priority species. But, last point, and Marlon would know this, his life was certainly not at a great risk, albeit that the wild dog was very close to him. There's actually no recordings of human mortalities anywhere globally as a result of wild dogs. Jaguars I can't comment on. I think that looks slightly more scary.
So Marlon, let's look at a few more of your pictures, if you don't mind.
Thank you. I'd love that. Thank you.
This, I must tell you, is one of my favorite pictures of all time.
Thank you. It's also in Manaples, northern Zimbabwe, and Mana's right on the Zambezi River. And a part of the Zambezi is this old floodplain filled with these magnificent anna trees or winter thorns. And during the late dry season, from about July through to October, you just get the most magnificent light that filters through this forest. But it's dry and it's tough going. But it's called the winter thorn for a reason, and it produces a very nutritious seed pod. And the animals are desperate for this. And if it weren't for that, many probably wouldn't stick around in the area or make it through the very difficult season in Manaples, the late dry season. And so some of the elephants have developed this habit and this ability to raise themselves up on their back legs and stretch up to feed on these trees. And it's only a handful of bulls that have been able to do it consistently and do it very well. And this is one of the youngsters that I took this photo last year, and one of the young bulls able to do that and learned behavior. There's a big bull that's just, I think, set the way for them. And you call them askaris, these bulls that just tag along behind the big bulls, and they watch and they learn. And he couldn't stand for very long. Some of them can stand on their back legs for up to 10 seconds, maybe even more. And he would stand up for a few seconds and go back down, but enough to position my guests and myself in such a way to get a photograph like this. And I would, you're correct in saying it's very unique. I've seen footage of them doing it all over Africa, from the Sabi Sands to the Masai Mara, Namibia. Rob, you'll know they tend to do it there as well. Anywhere where they really pushed to get to the food source, they'll develop unique habits, and this certainly is one of them.
I suppose in a similar way to the fact that in northern Botswana there are lions that eat and kill elephant. You do what you need to in order to survive.
Yeah, absolutely, they do. And this is an example of that. This is in Wangi, also in Zimbabwe, Wangi National Park, very close to Vic Falls. And man, it's incredible what happens in the dry season. Speaking to some of the researchers there, they've had prides of lion kill almost 40 elephants during the dry season by a single pride. And this is just an incredible display of power. And just, if you look at how he's digging those back legs into the sand, those claws are out. Like it is an amazing moment to see. And fortunately for that elephant, there was another herd very, very close by, and he managed to drag that male lion and 2 other lions all the way to that herd, and they let go because the herd came to the defense of the calf or sub-adult. But it certainly is an event that it's not everyone's cup of tea. It's elephants are big animals; they don't die very easily, and it is quite a traumatic experience to witness. It's very vocal. But from a photographic point of view, it's one of those battles that just get people, it tells a great story.
An amazing story. Now, of course, we don't have tigers in Africa, and you'll remember Nelson Mandela's biography or autobiography. They have a discussion whether there were ever tigers in Africa. And Mandela says, how is it possible, if there were never tigers in Africa, that there is a Xhosa word for a tiger?
Wow. Interesting.
So tell us where you took this picture.
This is in India, so in a place called Ranthambore, and a tigress called Arrowhead, and just a beautiful cat. And I just love the picture, because if you've been to Ranthambore, it is
which is in the south of Rajasthan.
Correct. It's in Rajasthan, not too far from Delhi. It's a couple hours, 4-hour drive from New Delhi, and it's just it's there's a lot of tiger photographs out there. But what I try to do with my wildlife photography is I try to stay true to the reserve, to the area, to the habitat. I think that's important, and something a lot of wildlife photographers lack nowadays. It's easy to get a pure portrait of a tiger, and it's been done. But what I always try and do is, a portrait of a tiger could have been taken in a zoo, it could have been taken in any park. But if you've been to Ranthambore and you look at this photograph, you'll just know where this was taken. And she was coming, there was some chital deer right behind us, and she was hunting, and she came straight towards us. And, the technology in cameras today allows you to have laser pinpoint autofocus, because it's not an easy photograph to get through the trees like that. And I just love that you get that one eye obscured by the trees, and it just, she's focused and coming through the trees towards this deer. And she missed. She didn't kill anything, but it is a photograph that I just love.
What do you shoot with as we move on to another horrendous but amazing photograph?
I'm an ambassador for Sony Alpha cameras, so I shoot Sony Alpha. They've made massive strides in the world of wildlife photography, and have done incredibly well. The products are class leading, absolutely.
So when one does photography lessons, they always tell you it's always about the eyes.
It's about the eye. And
I think this picture actually proves it.
This is a dream come true kind of sighting, and certainly, again, not for the faint of heart. But I'll tell you, we found these two male lions in Kruger, actually, at a private camp in the south, and they were right in front of our camp drinking water, and they were calling and calling. We joined them. We followed them for a bit. I was on a private safari with 2 guests, and we followed them for about an hour, and they eventually stopped. They got sight of a buffalo herd and stopped. Small herd, about maybe 50 or 60 buffalo. And they just stopped and lay down and watched. And after about 20 minutes, I decided, let's quickly have a cup of coffee. The buffalo herd had bedded down to rest, and the lions were resting. And it seemed like one of those kind of stalemate sightings. The buffalo were unaware of the lions at the time, and about 100 meters between them. And so, I think, man, let's have coffee. It'll be a great opportunity. No thing, coffee in the bush, as you know, amazing. Bit of amarula, it's great. And so I just had plunged the coffee, and I was just about to start pouring that first cup for my guests when one of the male lions just stood up and darted in towards the buffalo, full speed from like 80 meters away. I kid you not. And, I was busy pouring, and the moment I look over my arm, I just see this male lion has set off, and he's running. And I remember I threw something out of I think it may have been the plunger, went out of the car. I don't know why I did that. I get very excited very quickly. So something went, and then I chucked all the cups, and I was telling my guy, just go, 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 go. And he fired off. And by that time, this male lion was meters from the herd. The herd got the fright of their lives. They were running for their life, and just this crazy male lion. And by the time we caught up with him, he just jumped onto the back of a buffalo cow. And this photograph was taken literally as we got there, and full frame, not cropped. It's with a 400 f2.8, and just this eye looking back at me. And it was a crazy sighting, because it took him quite a while to dispatch of the second male came on. He didn't assist. And while we were busy photographing, I took hundreds of photographs in this sighting. After about 5 minutes of this male lion trying to suffocate the cow, 2 rhinos ran in. The rhinos chased the male lions off. The buffalo stood up. She ran away. The rhinos ran in the opposite direction, and the male lions caught up with the buffalo again, and this time doing a proper job and ending it for her. But as a wildlife photographer, that's pretty real.
Johnny Frankel says Marlon is the luckiest bugger in the world. What a life he leads. But Send Elise wants to know, do you carry a gun?
I don't. Many times our local guides will carry a rifle. I started in the lodge-based industry. I was a lodge-based guide when Howard and I met, and I carried a rifle. It was for times when your tracker goes off walking, or maybe when you take your guests out for a walk. But I never used it, and it's seldom the guys use it. So I, over the last 10 years, traveling a little bit more and seeing more of Africa, it's very seldom you have a rifle with you. And, in my photography, I don't enjoy eliciting a response from the animal. So I'm not a big fan of forcing the animal into a charge or looking at you overly interested in you. I really want it to be a natural moment. The animal always knows you're there. I'd love to be, paint this romantic picture if they don't know, but they're aware of you, but they're habituated, so they ignore you. And those are the kind of photographs that I really enjoy.
So Marlon, we started by asking, do you know who this is in the picture? So I have another question for you. Who are these people in the picture?
Hey, I remember that well. Nadav.
So that
remember it.
That little kid is in fact Nadav on the Jeep with you.
And Nadav, what do you think, man? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember it so well. I was just very lucky enough to go to Singita for my bar mitzvah. And it was already a life-changing trip. I'd always just loved the bush already. And it was a major surprise. I didn't know I was going. And then we landed. Marlon was the guide. And one of the biggest takeaways from that, what it taught me, because it was the first time me going to the park and having a guide, was knowing a lot about the bush can really get you to see more. And I'll never forget a sighting where we're just watching a herd of elephants just kind of just grazing. And next thing, we hear snorting. And I remember just not thinking much about it. But Marlon's no, something's just happened. And he got off, went tracking. And 2 minutes later, we found a leopard with an impala. And that for me was wow, that was magic. You know what I mean? So yeah, that trip taught me a lot about the bush. And an experience I'll never forget.
So we'd love to know from the people watching, which of Marlon's pictures, other than the ones with Nadav, did you like the most? Which were the most meaningful to? Please put in the chat section. We'd really love to hear from you. And it's amazing how small this world is, because Nadav, you know Marlon, and Chris and Terry, you've actually both worked with Marlon, have you not?
Yeah, we ran a campaign together not so long ago.
Yeah.
So Terry, tell us about the campaign.
So I suppose as a marketing team, we're always looking for really interesting ways to put the lodge on the map. The lodge only opened in the middle of January and 6 weeks later closed for lockdown. So very few people had heard about us in the 6 weeks that we were operating. And, we wanted to try and build a bit of a following, anticipating when the lodge would be able to open again. And one of the collaborations we did was with Marlon and the team from Freedom of Movement, which obviously brought Sia Kolisi in. And Marlon gave away one of his prints, and we gave away a 4-night stay at the lodge. It was a Father's Day campaign, and we really, we encouraged people who entered to share some really authentic moments of them and their dads having a bush experience. So we got some amazing photos shared with us. And the winner got 4 days at Mdluli Safaris Lodge, a print from Marlon, some Freedom of Movement gear, and Sony gear to use while they're down at the lodge.
It's amazing how everyone in the industry cooperates with each other. So Chris, your lodge Mdluli, which we're just hearing about, opened in January, but in fact, it's quite a unique thing because you have a tented safari experience right in the middle of Kruger, and it's a partnership between the Mdluli community and business. Tell us how that all happened and got together.
Howard, it's actually a wonderful, exciting story of a vision of a late traditional leader, Chief MZ Mdluli, who wanted to build a lodge for his people to create employment and so educate his people better. But the way the land got into the park is actually very interesting and unique. In 1967, a new railroad, a new Salati railroad was built, and a piece of this community's land was fenced into the park. Now, about 53 years later, that wonderful opportunity created the opportunity for the lodge to be built in the park. So now the community owns a piece of land in full title inside the fenced area of the Kruger National Park. So it's actually unique because in '94, this community started lobbying to get their land back. And in '98, former Minister Derek Hanekom returned the land to the community, but it took quite a while for business and the community to reach the point where we could actually build the lodge. There was obviously EIAs to be performed, etc. But now we can say proudly, this vision has become a story that's enriching the lives of a lot of people, creating employment, and in a way through tourism, we're also helping the environment. We've got an own anti-poaching unit, and I can share, you're quite right saying that the industry is actually very small. Nadav on the panel with us today was actually sleeping with me and the traditional leadership the first night that Mdluli Lodge actually had people sleeping there. So Nadav and his father joined us in a braai. Although all the units were not functional yet, it was a special experience. It's a pity I was the only one seeing the leopard that night.
Yeah, I remember we were the first guests there, and Chris had to go back to the other lodge in Kambeni on the other side. And I'd asked Chris so many times about what can you see from the camp? What can you see from the lodge? And he always tells me that he sees leopards. And on that short drive, he got to see a leopard. And it was so frustrating that I missed it. But it was an amazing, amazing night. And it was a beautiful lodge.
No, Dove, you only see decent wild animals with me, and we'll explain to people what that means in a minute. But Marlon, we're getting so many requests from people who want to know more about Wilde-eye, as well as where they can see your photography. So can I ask you, in the chat section, please, will you post the website for Wilde-eye so people can go and actually visit it? Also, if people want to follow you either on your personal website or your personal Instagram or your company website, or where they can see your photographic work, please won't you post that into the chat section so people can actually keep notes of that?
Thank you. I absolutely will. Thank you, Howie. I'll do that.
So, Chris, I mean, Kruger, which used to be sand parks, is no longer just sand parks. You've got Singita luxury camps up the north. You spoke about the Salati railway track. And of course, there's a Salati train, which is going to open in December on the bridge next to Skakuza, an ultra luxury train on the bridge where you'll be able to stay from December onwards. And now we've got this amazing tented safari experience in the middle based on the land claim. How is it working with the local community? How many jobs have you been able to create? I know lockdown has probably messed all of this up. How are we training people to participate in wildlife, in anti-poaching, in working in the lodges? What sort of job creation scheme is going on there?
So we've interviewed 2,850 people in our recruitment process, and we recruited about 62 members of the community in phase 1 of our lodge. The wonderful thing is that we're actually living out the vision of the late chief by creating employment for his community. So our target is to stick to about 90% of our staff to be coming from the local community. Obviously, we have to recruit skilled people as well to do the training that you're referring to, and to make sure that we render a 4-star experience, because we graded as a 4-star lodge. It's actually an amazingly beautiful place. I would like to invite all participants to go and have a look at our website. It is something spectacular. It's tranquil. You've got a wonderful view into the park, and guests this weekend said to me, it's just absolutely amazing. How is this possible that you can just sit and you see all the animals around you? We've obviously got the big 5 around us all day. It's a wonderful experience. The relationship with the community, obviously very important. It is their land. It's their ancestral land. And they are very passionate about the fact that this is their land, and for them to be able to share it with the rest of the world. So we're quite proud to be participants with them in this tourism property. It's, as I said, quite spectacular. It's based close to Numbi Gate in Pretoria's Kop. in the Kruger Park. And as you all know, it's part of the south of the Kruger Park. Some special things that we see there is the common reedbuck. We've got a lot of sable in the area. Now, Dove has already told you we've got a lot of leopard and lion. We, on a regular basis, have 3 male lions around the camp and 2 females hunting with them. They love their buffaloes, as Marlon has already indicated to you. And so it's a special place. The community makes it all possible. So it's important that we respect them and work with them to make this a tourism project that everybody in our country can be proud of.
Well, you know, it's amazing because some of the best experiences you can ever have are in fact in the bush. And Marlon, the one thing that I think it's 11 years ago since you last guided me, but the most magical experience of all was in the evening when you took us out in the Jeep and you turned off all of the lights, and with a laser pointer, you did a tour of the night sky in the middle of the bush. And you could hear elephants around, you could hear the roar of a lion, and you did this beautiful tour of the night sky. I think that will stay with me forever.
Absolutely. I mean, those are that's exactly what I said earlier. I think nowadays you get a wildlife photographer that progresses and starts taking people on safari. But I think what I really try and do differently is, you know, I love animals. I'm experienced in guiding and working with guests, from lodge-based guiding to what I do now. So definitely focus on great photographs and great wildlife moments, but taking those moments, like just watching animals, sitting and looking at the night sky. You know, so many amazing experiences that can change people's lives outside of just the photographic experience.
So Terry, client experience, obviously you've put an enormous amount of effort into creating an amazing experience for them. Just before we talk about the Mdluli experience, and I see you've just posted into the chat the website, and we'll be helping people because there's a special offer for people in Mdluli. We want people to get a sense and an understanding of exactly what that experience looks like. So I'm just very quickly going to show a video of Mdluli. So Terry, that just looks absolutely astounding to be able to have an experience like that. Traditionally, South Africans have been unable to afford anything like that because everything's been priced in dollars. But things have changed during lockdown because we're not getting all those international tourists coming. So there are amazing deals out there. Tell us about the experience that one would have at Mdluli.
Sure. You know, before I go into that, I mean, obviously, COVID has, the impact of COVID has completely slashed prices. I mean, now you're seeing top lodges, you're picking them up for 50, 70% off the price. And I think just by way of introduction to Mdluli from a kind of how is it positioned in the market perspective, is we don't sit up there at the top end of the uber luxury lodges. As Chris said, we're a 4-star lodge. And I think, you know, I'll come back to that point, but it's so interesting for me. I mean, Marlon, your photos are exceptional. They are out of this world. And I think, you know, I follow Marlon on Instagram, and Mdluli follow Marlon on Instagram. And it's incredible because you see these photos. But here you sit with Marlon and you hear the story behind them. And it takes that beauty and that exceptional moment that he captured with his lens to another level. And I think I'll draw a parallel of that with the lodge, because when you see that footage and when you arrive at the lodge and there's massive oversized infinity pool, kind of, you know, it's breathtaking. The whole design of the lodge is beautiful. But again, in photos and in videos and even in person, it's beautiful. What we want people to know is the story. We want them to hear what comes with this. You know, our line that we talk about as a team, and we put it in some of our marketing as well, is feel good and leave something good behind. And, you know, Chris has talked about the importance of the partnership with the community. And this is something that you know, I work with, you know, me and the marketing and branding team. This is not something that is about paying lip service to it. This is not a case of, oh, let's throw some Siswati proverbs into this. This is a brand that is absolutely authentically grounded in this partnership with the community. And I think the land holds so much significance. The land holds significance for the wildlife and the conservation message, but the land holds significance for the Mdluli community and the future. I mean, the villages, there's 4 villages that make up the community that are adjacent to the park. And there's 45,000 people roughly with an unemployment rate of 62%. So, you know, you realize that we want people to go to Mdluli Safari Lodge and have the most exceptional experience. The tents, as you saw in the pictures, are oversized, custom built, magnificent. You lie in that tent, you go to sleep to the sounds of hyena, the roaring of lions, you have elephants. It's a fenced camp. We had on our last day there about 3 weeks ago, elephants literally on the other side of the fence, 10 meters from our patio. And you wake up and you open those curtains and then you're just looking straight out into the bush from your luxury tent. And we want people to just, you know, to love the bushwalks and to love the drives and their sundowners and their morning drives. And, you know, again, a few weeks ago when we were there, literally, Howard, before 12 p.m., just sitting on the deck having breakfast and then moving down to the pool. By 12 p.m., we'd seen a herd of about 200 odd buffalo. We'd had a herd of elephant come through to drink because there's a kind of watering hole just in front of the fence. We'd had sable come through, we'd had giraffe come through, and some warthog. I mean, a couple of hours. You've got to be lucky, right? It's the Kruger. There's no guarantees of anything. There's no guarantee. If Nadav knew exactly where everything was, he wouldn't have a business. So the point is to go on the journey and to go on the adventure and see what you find. But certainly, from my perspective, it's an absolute privilege to work on a project like this. We work closely with members of the community, ensuring that what we put out there, again, has integrity, has authenticity. You know, we've done amazing collaborations. You'll see, hopefully, a lot of people will go on to experience the lodge. You know, oversized artworks beaded in a cross-generational project by the women of the community. So there's a whole story here. I mean, Howard, we could talk for hours on this, but
Terry, give us a sense. How much would I pay, say, for a tent? 2 people in a tent per night at Mdluli at the moment.
So again, this is not the Uber Lodge that's targeting only an international audience. Pre-COVID, our rate per person per night was 3,850, which would give you your accommodation, dinner, breakfast, and a game drive per person per day. Those rates are now, I mean, we've got a starting rate from 1,950 per person, which is dinner, bed, and breakfast. So that's more self-drive package. Obviously, people that want to come down can absolutely go self-driving in the park. As Chris said, we located inside the park. And to our comments earlier, Howard, before we started chatting, people, have grown up, they've gone to the Sandparks accommodation, got amazing memories, huge sense of nostalgia. And now they're probably looking for something a little bit more of a step up. It's a beautiful luxury experience, but they're not quite looking to the top end of the, uber luxury lodges. So I think that gives us a kind of position really in the middle there.
So can I put you on the spot? The people watching tonight, can we give them a discount?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, what we're going to do is shortly, we're going to put up a poll. if you would like a discount code that will get you a discount at Mdluli off the amazing rates that are being offered at the moment, we're going to ask you to say yes, and we'll send the details on to Terry, and Terry's going to contact you with all the information. I have one more question, Terry, for you, and that is, I know in the beginning Mdluli was set up as a Section 12J structure, that in fact your investment in Mdluli is tax deductible. Is that still available to people if people want to buy into the investment and be actually a part owner of this investment together with the Mdluli community?
Absolutely, it is still an option. The money that was, the money used to develop the lodge was raised, as you say, through the Section 12J. So we've got a kind of a group of 50 odd founding investors who have put their money in, and as an investor, it's 100% tax deductible. So it's a great and very legal way for SARS to fund your next 10 years of luxury trips to the Kruger Park. So it's on a fully tax deductible basis, investments from 250,000 Rand. And as an investor, besides the fact that you can know you're investing into this exceptional project in terms of social impact, you're also, you get an allocation of bed nights each year to use. So depending on the amount, we've had investors go in for 250,000, we've had investors go in for 2 million. It really depends, but it's certainly by far, if you love the Kruger, one of our investors said, if you love the Kruger, this is an absolute no-brainer.
Okay, can people as well, if they do yes on the poll and they want information about Section 12J, you'll be the person that they'll contact as well?
Absolutely.
So Danny, can I just ask, can you pull up the poll, please? And the poll is, do you want a discount code for Mdluli? If you say yes, then we can add you to the mailing list. We can book accommodation. You just say yes, and we'll provide all your details through to Terry. She's going to send you a discount code. So whenever you want to go, at least you'll be able to take advantage of that. And we'll leave that up for the moment. I see Terry, where there are already looks like about 80, 90, now 100 people who have already asked for the discount code coming up. So it's amazing. I mean, when you just look at those experiences and those images of a tented safari camp, it's everyone's wildest fantasy in life. The only thing missing is at some point in time, I want to shower under a bucket outdoors.
There's an outdoor shower. So every tent
with a bucket.
No bucket.
I need a bucket at some point in time. Just please put a bucket shower, even if it comes out of the proper faucet. I'd love it just to be. It's been a fantasy of mine for years to shower underneath a bucket with holes in.
Listen, Chris has realized some amazing. He's overcome some incredible challenges on this project. I'm sure, Howard, this will be a welcome, an easy one. But each tent does have an outdoor shower, so you're standing under that exceptional Kruger sky. Each tent has got a private patio. They're massive tents, so each tent sleeps a family of 4, 2 adults and 2 kids on the sleeper couch. And it's I'm happy to hear that there was such a positive response, and we look forward to welcoming.
Well, we now are 170, 180 people. The numbers are still going up of people who want you to contact them with a discount code to come stay at Mdluli. So I'm gonna give you 10 more seconds. If you haven't clicked for someone to contact you, please do so now. Otherwise, I'm about to end the poll. And Terry, you'll get hold of everyone in the week to come.
Yeah, Howard, I'll just tell you that on the 13th and 14th of November, and you're hearing it here first, we're actually hosting the Johannesburg Philharmonic. They're coming down to the lodge, and they're doing 2 concerts. On the Saturday for guests, which is obviously included in whatever you paid, whichever rate you're paying for that weekend. And on the Sunday, we're actually busing in a whole bunch of kids from a primary school in the Mdluli community and hosting them for the morning and for lunch. And the concert will be for them. And it's really an education about the orchestra and the instruments. And the JPO are going to use that content to take to schools as part of an educational program. So we love, again, going back to the whole Marlin collaboration, we're really looking for unique ways to put the story on the map.
Danny, I see that we've had some WhatsApps from people who are busy watching on YouTube who also want to be able to do it. And obviously the polling doesn't work on YouTube. So Terry, can I ask, can you give us an email address? And
Sure.
The people on YouTube can just mail you and say, please send me a code or put me onto the mailing list or something. So what email address can they use for you?
So probably the best to use just info@mdlulisafarilodge.co.za, which I'll pop into the chat.
Okay, so we need to, if you pop it into this chat, Danny will also pop it into the chat on YouTube, because we have hundreds and hundreds of people watching us on YouTube as well. And we want to make sure that they too can get an advantage. Chris and Terry, thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a great pleasure having. Please stay with us, because we'd love you as well to comment on some of the things that we're about to see that Nadav is going to show us. So Nadav Ossendriver, do you remember the first time we met?
Clearly, yeah, definitely. Like it was yesterday.
So we were in the Kruger Park. You were with your parents. I was trying to introduce a friend from Cape Town into the wonders of the Kruger Park. And my friend from Cape Town wanted to know what time was high tea, yoga, and meditation classes. He went off to bed. Your parents went off to bed, and you came and knocked on my door and said, I'm not old enough to drive a car. Please, won't you take me for a drive? And we went off because you had an app at the time called Kruger Sightings, now Later Sightings, and you had never seen a sable antelope before. And you made me drive up and down a road for probably 3 hours because someone had spotted a sable antelope on that road, and you would not let me go back to the camp until you had seen that. I was there when you saw your first sable.
Yeah, it was amazing, because I remember we left the camp, and I think there was 2 sightings. There was one of like a lion and one of a sable, and I'd never seen a sable. And I'll never forget, I asked you like, can we go look for that? And you were like, yeah, let's just do it. Let's go. And yeah, we drove up and down. And I remember we stopped a few cars, and they said they saw it as well until they stopped saying that they saw it. And I was so disheartened. But yeah, like I think we spent like 3 hours doing that like 5K part of the road. And as we were about to give up, I'll never forget just looking on the mountain, and I saw like this head lift up, and I was like, oh, that's there. And yeah, it was just an amazing experience. And and luckily since then I've now seen a bit better sightings, right, to like on the road, and it's amazing. But I'll never forget that.
But never with better company. Terry, please remember, people are desperately, I'm getting WhatsApps all the time from both the YouTube people and the people watching here. They need your email, please, in the chat right now on both channels.
Sure.
Thanks so much. And Danny, you will take it off the chat that Terry's about to put on and put it on YouTube, please. That would be fantastic. So Nadav, from those early days, you started as a school kid. You used to spend your dates doing people would tell you where they saw things in Kruger Park. You would try to repost it during lunch breaks at school. In fact, you won the first inaugural Jewish Achiever Award, Young Entrepreneur Award. You were still in matric. In fact, you sat at the awards with your maths book because you had your maths exams the next day. And you did maths in the middle of the award ceremony, waiting to win your award. Today, you run the largest South African YouTube channel in the world. How many viewers do you actually have? How many views have you had?
So on YouTube alone, we've had 1.2 billion. But like across our Facebook, YouTube, everything, we get about like 47 views every second. So it's about 28.5 million views a week. So yeah, I mean, we reach a lot of people around the world.
So tell me, if I'm somewhere, I'm in the Kruger, I'm staying at Mdluli, I go out, I see something amazing, I video it, I hand the video over to you, and there's a partnership between you and me in revenue derived from that video. Is that correct?
Yeah, I started Later Signing when I was very young, and it was just out of the passion of just going to the bush. So it was never really a business idea. But as we started helping people see a lot more sightings, people starting to see incredible ones. And we would share the photos on Instagram, we would share the stories on Facebook. But the only place to share a good video is YouTube. And I started posting them on YouTube, and they started doing really well and going viral. And YouTube started putting ads on the videos and paying us for it. And I remember just thinking, these aren't my videos. Let's share the revenue of the person who filmed it. And yeah, so we started our partnership program where people would send in their videos, and if it does well, can earn quite nicely from them.
So Nadav, what we're going to actually be doing today is we're going to be looking at some of your favorite videos, and we're going to ask everyone to comment on them. So I've almost divided them into categories for us to look at. And the first category I want to look at is how dangerous is all of this? So here is our first two videos that we're going to look at.
Hey!
So Nadav, you were just away and you nearly died 4 times on one trip. Tell us about that.
So during lockdown, the park was closed, and all the parks everywhere in South Africa were closed, and we wanted to keep our community entertained, and we thought of, why don't we start doing live streams? And so we collaborated with Mdluli, which is a place in the greater Kruger, and they've had a lot of viral videos from us, and we started doing live safaris, and we built up our relationship quite well. And the People's Weather channel saw this, and they wanted to do our own show, which is now on. And so we went up during lockdown to do some filming. And on that trip, I mean, the sightings were incredible, but I almost died 4 times from different animals. On my first afternoon, we were just about to go to a game drive, and I can't believe it, but I forgot my video camera in my room. So I was like, I just need to go get it quickly. And on my way back, just outside my door, I was about to stand, and there was a puff adder just in the walkway, and it was so crazy. And I'll never forget how sharp my eyes were. And I usually wear glass, my eyes were so sharp, my brain just was so clear what I should do, and I just stood back and I started taking a video of this puff adder. But it was pretty scary, and I think it took me about like an hour to stop shaking from the adrenaline. I mean, that's happened to me before in Skukuza as well. I was just in the heat of the day, went to the waterhole, over to the riverbed there, and a boom slug started crawling up my leg, and also it was scary. But the other one at Mdluli was the next day. We were out on a sunset drive. And the camera crew, they wanted to set up a time lapse, and they wanted to point it at the sky. And they asked the guide if we could just get out here quickly, set up the camera, and then drive around and come back later and fetch it. And and the guide was like, sure, yeah. So we all got off, and I looked on the ground and I saw like these big male lion tracks, and it looked like it was quite fresh. There were lots of car tracks, and all the paw prints were on top of those car tracks. And tracking 101, that tells you that it's fresh. And I remember telling the guide, like, these look pretty fresh, no? And he's like, yeah, it looks like it was around here. So I started walking and following these tracks away from the car. And next thing I look up, and a Gari male lion, like, just started, like, it stood up, stared at me for about like a few seconds, but it felt like years. And then it just went back to sleep. And I quickly told everyone, like, get back into the car. But something about the Gari male, I mean, they're two brothers who rule the whole of Mdluli. They run like a lot of the prides there, and Mdluli is like a prime place as well, for big cats, and to be powerful enough to kind of control a few prides in that area, that tells you how big and strong these male lions are. And to walk into it is also something extremely extremely scary, but it was pretty fun. And
do you have insurance, and can I be the beneficiary?
I don't have insurance for that, I don't think.
I want to ask Marlon, let's pretend your wife has gone to sleep. What's the most dangerous thing that you've ever experienced?
Wow. There's a few. No, I remember as a guide, walking to a buffalo bull. I was walking from my I was still a trainee guide, and where I stayed was just outside. You go through from the lodge to the staff village, through the car park, across the soccer field, and then a bit of bush road, and then you get to where we stayed at that point. There wasn't enough ranger accommodation in the main area, and I remember walking. It was dark. I didn't have a flashlight. I had my, back in the day, little iPod, little tiny screen. That was my light, and it was raining. So I was in a hurry to get to my room. And I just remember hearing something, and I stopped and I thought it was a lion, or I don't know. It was dark, and you're aware of what's happening around you. So I kill the light and I listen around me for about a minute, and I switch it back on again. And as I take my first step, I step almost onto a buffalo's nose. The buffalo's lying on the pathway looking at me, and he stood up, and I just immediately, I remember turning and running. And I mean, it's a buffalo. These things, I think out of any animal in Africa, I've dealt with lions and elephants and all sorts of stuff on foot, but a buffalo is a very scary animal. And I just remember running. How I saw where I ran, I have no idea. This is at Singita, Ebony in the Sabi Sands. But yeah, I faced off a lioness. She charged. She had cubs. 3 lionesses charged us. And I remember by the time she stopped, she slammed her feet into the sand. I, after the incident, had pebbles and stones in my boots. So I had to, both my tracker and I, we both stood down the charge, but we had to take our boots out and kind of dip them upside down, taking stones and sand from that charge out of our boots. so pretty close.
We just saw in that video, we saw a rhino charging, and Yolan, I want to actually ask you how we're doing with rhino poaching. Are we winning the war, not winning the war? But before you answer it, while you answer that, now, Dove, there are lots of questions in the chat of people wanting to know what's your channel, what's your YouTube channel, where can they find you? Can you actually put the details into the chat? Danny, if you can make sure we transfer that onto YouTube as well. But Yolan, let's talk about rhino poaching. Is the country winning the battle?
So Howard, I think like everything, COVID has put a slightly different slant on things this year. So this year we have definitely seen a decline in the number of rhino that are poached. And there's a number of reasons for that. So I like to always say that it's as soon as we've had a situation that we have had now where our borders are closed, our policing is increased. We had, for example, roadblocks right throughout level 1, and albeit for different reasons, looking for people driving outside of the curfew with alcohol, etc., etc. But visible policing clearly made a difference. And we know for a fact that many of those roadblocks picked up wildlife contraband in the trade as well. So I think one of the things that lockdown has taught us is that if there is vigilant monitoring of our borders, if there's vigilant monitoring of cargo in and out the country, if there's visible policing, if there's roadblocks, and if there's certainly better controls over people coming in and out of our parks, it can help. So going forward, hopefully that's a lesson to be learned. But obviously it stands to reason now to see what will happen with the lockdown lifting, if we're likely to see the increase in poaching increase. There is a concern, obviously, that we've got vastly increased numbers of unemployed people living around our parks, and the temptation to poach may certainly be on the increase with people now having economic pressure on them. So winning it is a long way to go before we're winning that, but I think the numbers in poached animals this year around is likely to be decreased, certainly, than we've seen in the last 10 years.
Okay, at least some good news there. Marlon, just before we go on to look at the next videos, can you tell us why would a rhino suddenly charge like that at what clearly is a massive vehicle?
Yeah, so in the frame there was a black rhino, and they are well known for a very bad temperament, a very nervous disposition. They don't have great eyesight, so what they lack up in eyesight, they have a fantastic sense of smell and sense of hearing. And whereas white rhino tend to perhaps be more inquisitive or find out what they're charging at, should they have a go, more often not they want to move the opposite way. A black rhino just asks no questions, and you'll often see exactly what that poor guy had in the video. I think he was enjoying his photographs when he all of a sudden saw the rhino filled up quite a bit of his frame. And yeah, they are grumpy. And on foot, there'll be a characteristic like a, and then if you hear that and you're walking, you find the tree very, very quickly.
Chris, are there any life-threatening experiences that you want to share with us in the bush?
Well, we from time to time get encounters with elephants, and elephants have their temperament. Sometimes they like to charge or mock charge, as we say. Many times black mambas can surprise you, and so we've had our few encounters also on bushwalks. Wild dog taking out the waterbuck, fortunately, and not us. But we heard tonight that the wild dog is not actually going for the humans, which is nice. But on bushwalks, sometimes a rhino charging past you, not because it wants to hurt you, but just being scared and all of a sudden rushing past you. So it is quite an encounter to go through that.
So Nadav, let's look at a few more videos. We've looked at some stupid people and some dangerous stuff.
But something I wanted to add with that first one with the lions in the road, that was actually our first video ever on our partner program. Yeah, it's one of the most viewed wildlife videos on YouTube now. It's had over 120 million views. It's amazing. I mean, and the guy who sent it in is a pensioner. He doesn't earn, from any work. And the amount he's earned from this video sends him back to the park quite often, which is, to send more videos. So it's, it's quite funny.
So I want to talk about some of your cutest animals that you've had. So let's watch two more videos.
I think she must have stepped on her trunk. Oh, he's chasing the bird. Oh, I see. I didn't realize she was chasing the birds. That's so cute. Chasing the birds. That's so funny.
Ja. Ze weer uit. Daar kom die kleintjies. Ze het hulle gaan haal met hulle wou nie gevoel. Hallo die enetjie. Ze wil hom nou haal.
So Nadav, how many people would watch a video like that?
So a lot about our demographic on YouTube specifically is it's kind of more towards probably males. Well, it's males between about 18 and 30. And a lot of that demographic usually tends to watch the gory videos. So I don't know if you follow our channel, but more often than not, we'll share kind of more videos with action. And whenever we post videos that are cute, not often do they do well in terms of going viral. But what we try and do is with each video, we time it. So the first one that you showed with the elephant and the birds, we got that video and I saw that it's super cute. It could really do well, but we really take time into making each video do really well. And so that one specifically, we waited for like the perfect time. And when we released it, it was when Cecil the lion got killed. I don't know if everyone here remembers it, but it sent the world into like a riot. Everyone was really upset and they were fighting about it and everyone was just upset. And I could actually feel it in our community. And I felt, maybe it's time to share a really nice, happy, cute video. And I decided to share that elephant one. And that video just went super viral. And in the top of the description on YouTube, we actually dedicated it to Cecil. And overnight, I think that video got like 15 million views. And the person who filmed it, you can hear her speaking. She's a lecturer in Wits, and she used the money that she earned through that video to fund some of her students to finish her course, and also to go to elephant conservation project. So there was like an amazing story of a really cute video doing really well. And then also the leopard one. I mean, that happened this year. You know, someone was in the park, had a really good luck just outside Lower Sabi, and filmed those two really cute leopard cubs. And I think that video, let me just check, but I think it's on about 6.6 million views. So yeah, those are two of our best cute videos. They don't all often do that well.
So Yolan, let's actually talk about leopard and cheetah. How are we doing in conservation of those two?
So I'll start with cheetah. South Africa is the only country in the world that actually has an increasing population of cheetah. We've been doing very well with cheetah conservation for many years now, to the point where we've actually started repopulating some of our neighboring countries. Eswatini and Malawi specifically have had very successful introductions of cheetah, to the point where we're on the second generation in both countries already. So cheetah are still doing quite well. Again, they remain conservation dependent because they tend to come into conflict with landowners, communities, farmers, particularly if they get outside protected environments. But they are on the slight increase. Leopards are very different from a conservation perspective. We tend to not move them around in terms of repopulating environments. They do that quite well by themselves. So with leopard, the whole secret to conservation there is creating safe space and reducing human-wildlife conflict. There are many organizations involved in leopard conservation in South Africa, and they've done a lot of good work to try and reduce some of that conflict with landowners and communities and farmers. But obviously with encroachments into their habitat, that is always going to be an ongoing issue. Leopards tend to get blamed for a lot of livestock losses, even if it isn't their fault. And they tend to exist in low densities over very vast ranges. So, you know, it's quite difficult to get a really good handle on the number of leopards we have in South Africa, but it is a population that is considered to be stable. Some parts of South Africa are still declining, but it is a well-monitored population on the whole. So both of those species remain conservation dependent, but they are stable at the moment.
So Yolan, I've had a few requests. There are people who want to try support the Endangered Wildlife Trust. Can you post details in the chat for people? Yes. Where do they go to? What website to go to? How to make donations? Can I ask you, just while we look at the next videos, if you'd post that into the chat section? Marlon, we were talking about some of the life-threatening experiences that you've had. And there's a photograph you just sent me that I would love to share with people. How on earth did you get out of that?
Yeah, I thought while we were on the conversation, I thought I'd send these through to you. And the other one, that one right there, is that's the initial encounter. And this bull just kept charging me. We're actually having coffee in Mana Pools, and he was feeding on the trees in the background. And I just went closer for a bit of a photograph. I had a telephoto lens photographing him from a little bit further away. And he just kept coming closer and closer. And it's a bit of a psychological battle with elephants on foot that ultimately you should try and win because it's in your best interest. And he was on the other side of the road you see in front of us there. And usually they have the mental barrier. They don't often want to cross a road to confront you. They like to stay behind a bush or a fallen log or a road. And this boy just kept coming in. And this photo was the first time he charged. He came head down and I shouted and he stopped. The second charge, I think I kicked some stones at him and waved my arms around and he stopped again. But by the fourth time, I was just about to lob my camera at him. I was looking up at this bull. My guest was standing back having coffee behind me, and they were like, "Oh, Marlon's got it. It's all under control." Meanwhile, you know, my legs were probably doing this, because by that time, the fourth charge, it gets pretty serious, you know, and you got to know what you're doing. And in that situation, if you don't react well, it could end badly for you. But fortunately, after the fourth charge, he backed off enough, and I went back to the car. And I have one of my guests took some great photos, and that's how I got to share these with you.
Well, Nadav, let's look, in fact, at another remarkable video, and this is truly astounding.
Cub still looks fine, no injuries. Kruger National Park, Watamiri Road, troop of baboons with this lion cub that's still very much alive. This female's busy grooming it. And very unusual sighting. Lion cub still looks healthy. And this female baboon's grooming it as if it's one of her own.
This is going viral down in South Africa. A baboon was photographed picking up a lion cub and grooming him. Look at this. Sadly, now the baboon is being sued by Disney for copyright infringement. Don't say it. Don't lift him up. Don't lift him up.
Yeah, so Marlon was on Jimmy Fallon. So was Later Sightings for like 30 seconds.
WTF? How is that possible?
I know. One of the saddest part about that sighting was I was there that day, and I just didn't do that road, and it was crazy because I saw the sighting come through on Later Sightings, the app, and I remember seeing a lion and baboon in a tree. I thought maybe they got it wrong, but then the guy phoned me, Kurt. So he runs Kurt Safari. It's quite a big kind of tour operator in the Kruger, and he is like, I saw this like incredible sighting of a baboon with the lion cub, and he said he wants it to go viral, and yeah, we shared it for him. But it's amazing, like with Later Sightings, we'll get sightings of lions killing buffalo, like kind of the standard kills and incredible sightings, but every so often, maybe once or twice a year, we'll get something that I don't think has ever been seen before. And this was one of them. And what was the most fascinating thing was that month, we actually got 2 other sightings of exactly the same thing, where 2 different baboons in different parts. One was in Kruger by Olifants, and one was in the Pilansberg, of baboons that also took a leopard cub. And both of them were just alive. And same with this lion. And it's just very, very unusual. I'd never heard about it, and then 3 in one month. It was crazy.
That's so bizarre. Let's watch our next set of videos.
Wow. This is National Geographic.
Oh my God, baby.
Whoa. This is my territory.
Oh my God. Wow. Oh.
So Marlon, I guess we now know between a rhino and an elephant wins. I think that's the one lesson. Between a male lion and a female lioness, I presume a lioness wins.
That's the case in life. I mean, we all know that pretty well. But what a great video to see that male lion just like sneaking up on her like that. But unbelievable. And that rhino footage, my gosh. With the photograph and the camera in hand.
Absolutely.
And what's amazing is, both those sightings were all over Africa. I mean, the lion and lioness one was taken in Kenya, and the elephant rhino one was taken in a private part of Kruger. So, I mean, it's just it's so cool to run this community where people are sharing their experiences from all over. And I kind of when I was thinking about the videos to show tonight, I chose that elephant baby with the birds. And then I chose this one next to show, like, how elephants can be super cute and, chasing a few birds around, but it also just shows how powerful they can be. I mean, there were actually 2 rhinos there. I don't know if it was very clear, but it was a rhino and a calf.
A calf. So
I mean,
could you actually explain this photograph to us? Because this is a photograph that, in fact, you posted from later sightings.
Let's see. So this was another very unusual sighting. Also, like, I don't think we'll ever see it again, ever. But what you see here is actually we had this person. The name was
what we see there is an April Fool's joke, is it not?
It was. So it was a person there who was following a lioness with a cub, and you can see it was very dry, and she just got tired. So the elephant came and helped her carry the cub.
Oh, tell us that story again on April the 1st.
Yeah, so, with later sightings, it's very much just wildlife. We don't do any politics. We don't go into any of that. And, so we don't ever do anything, we try never to do anything controversial. And so the only day I can kind of play around with the community is on April Fools. And it's something I've been doing literally from year 1, which is now 9 years. Anyway. And every year I love analytics as well, which is why I think we grow a lot on YouTube and social media. And every year I'll analyze how the previous April Fools did, and I would just work on it. And I just kind of came up with this good formula where people want a story. It has to be a bit believable. And I just thought, why don't I just share a sighting of an elephant helping out a lioness that's tired? And I posted it, and yeah, I mean, it was mad. It reached 200 million people, that photo, around the world. It was, it fooled the cleverest of people around the world. It was just crazy. It was amazing to see.
So we've seen some stupid people, we've seen some powerful animals, we've seen some really cute. We are going to see a little bit more gore now in the next clips that we look at.
Other lions.
Yes,
this is my favorite video of all time.
Here we go.
And we have to wait till the end because it has a very interesting end to this video.
No, don't worry. The stations, the lions running in from the south, the buffalo are moving northwards in the direction of the Machipiri males, who are also running in. Pete, don't waste any time. Just get your Pete, Flockfield Doma crossing.
So now, Dirk, this is the part where I normally stop watching the video. I can't watch anymore.
Two Machipiri males and 2 outfield lionesses. The Machipiri lioness.
This is the part you must watch now.
Okay, these other 2 lionesses maybe will chase that third one.
Yeah.
Look at them, she's not happy.
Yeah, not happy.
But they're more happy about the buffalo.
All right.
Stations, the Machu lioness was just in the process of being eaten up by the lioness.
So if you take off your eye off the ball, the buffalo actually escapes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
And Nadav, you posted this really interesting one very recently. That was this week or last week. Is that correct?
This was about 2 weeks ago. And also one of the most just crazy, so full of like action. It's amazing.
Do this quick because once the hyenas hear this, did you get the video?
Yep.
Some of another pet coming. Another one? Yeah, rest of the turkeys arriving now.
And it's still alive, eh? 2 more. Yes. The thing's still alive, eh?
That's quite something to look at, as gory and terrible as that is.
It is. It is. But, you know, I think we've shown quite a variety of videos, you know, cute, cuddly, and in action. And that's kind of what we try and do. We try and show raw nature as it comes, the good and the hard to watch. You know, so those two aren't actually the most gory we've shared.
So raw nature is coming to say hello to you right there.
Yeah, there's our own catcher. But yeah, you know, that's what we try and do, and it's amazing. Like when we post a gory sighting, people complain, why don't we save the animal? I'm sure, like, you know, when Marlon posts his graphic photos, you also get it. And it's something, you know, you just let nature take its course. You know, if it's not, you know, if the injury isn't caused by humans, you have to let it be. And I mean, it's amazing. You know, that's the top comment we get every time. You know, and yeah, it's incredible to see. And also something I've noticed just this talk was, you know, like the different ways of like photographing, you know, nature, where Marlon is like professional, the gear is top quality, you know, and later sightings, it's, you know, it's very much the everyday type of person sharing, you know, taking a video on their phone, and both have their just incredible beauty, and, you know, they just share their own type of story of what happens out in, you know, in the wild. So yeah, those are a few of the videos that we've shared.
So Rob, we've kept you on hold for a long time, but you've seen some amazing footage and some amazing photographs. But you, in fact, as Legacy Hotels, run some of the most remarkable lodges in South Africa and in Namibia. Let's watch some of the video footage, and then let's come and talk to you about what's in the Legacy Hotel Group.
Africa, where the wild roam free and people embrace life. This is Legacy's playground, where adventure beckons and wonders await. Discover Legacy moments. Discover Legacy Hotels and Resorts.
So Rob, you have some of the best lodges. Let's talk about, and they're very accessible because they're not overly pricey. Let's talk about the Pilanesberg first of all. You've got 2 lodges in Pilanesberg.
Well, wow. First of all, I must say it's been quite an entertaining evening. Marlon, I've been Googling a little bit on the side. I said there's some amazing pictures, and I'll certainly be following it going forward. Well done. And Nadav, I mean, we've had some discussions before. We haven't done any business together yet, but I can tell you we're nearing that point now down in the Kruger and with some of our properties down there. So what an amazing evening. And Mdluli's story is just fantastic too. So from our point of view, I was actually joking with Harry on the phone. I said Pilanesberg just got 15 minutes closer for people from Johannesburg. And if you don't believe me, go and try it tomorrow morning. The new roads open past Hartbeespoort. So it's no longer a 2-hour drive. It's now 1:45. It's actually, it cuts out a whole chunk of travel. So Pilanesberg, we have Bakubung, KwaMaritane, and then we have a little lodge that's not, it's not often spoken about, but we do have another little one there that's got 10 chalets right in the middle of the Pilanesberg called Tsukuru. Legacy been running these lodges. In fact, we were the first there in 1984. At the same time that Sun City was being built, KwaMaritane was built and opened in 1984. So we've had a footprint in the Pilanesberg for 36 years now, and had a very successful time in the Pilanesberg. And I've been up there a bit of late because after lockdown we managed to get up there from a work point of view. And I'll tell you what's changed over this lockdown. What it's done for us is it's improved the wildlife, and it's unbelievable the wildlife in the Pilanesberg right now. And I think one other big thing that we never really talk about is it obviously doesn't have malaria either. So we've got you say amazing specials at the moment. I'll mention them. They're available on our website. I'm not going to offer any codes, anything. You can email me directly.
But what we're going to do for people who want the special, we're going to put up a poll as well. So that we'll give you everyone's email address. You can send them the special as well. But they are so reasonable at the moment. Tell us what the offer is at the moment.
So at the moment, we've got rates from 1,000 Rand per person, bed and breakfast at either KwaMaritane or Bakubung. So there we have 190 rooms between the 2 resorts, and as you know, Howie, you told me on the phone you've been investing in timeshare of late, but we also run timeshare resorts there too. So they're big lodges. From 1,000 Rand per person per night. That's the deal we've got going on, which is about 50% of what we'd normally be charging in the market. And merely it was to give. We do a lot of South African business, and I don't want to be mistaken on that. We do a huge amount of South African business normally, but we thought after the hardships of lockdown and this COVID wonderful pandemic that we've been dealing with this year, we thought we'd make it more accessible for South Africans to be able to come and visit us. And we've had people. I think we've been full since we went to lockdown level 2. We've basically been just about full every single weekend since then. So, and people just can't wait to get out there, and it's absolutely awesome to be out there. So that's really great. But I also want to talk a little bit more about down in the area down in Kruger. We have 2 lodges down in Kruger. One not so much a lodge. One is Kruger Park Lodge, which is in Hazyview, which has a 9-hole golf course and is really a family entertainment holiday, and right near the Pabeni Gate. But then our latest, we call it the latest kid on the block, is we have a property called Elephant Point, which is totally different to what everyone else has down there. It's a villa product, specializing in 2, 3, 4, and 5 bedroom villas to the top end of the market. I mean, these villas are absolutely out of this world. And I think during the current times and during COVID times, for domestic travel and people that are a bit nervous about COVID and don't necessarily want to interact with other people on holiday, I mean, the villa products are becoming very, very, very popular, especially because it is self-catering, or it can be fully catered. And also game drives are available, etc., etc. So that's down near Paul Kruger Gate, which we've recently, it's been there about 3 years already, but we've only really put a big effort in the last 18 months to get it up and running. And that was what we were engaging with Nadav about, is how we get it better on the map. And what has happened is it was never a domestic product. But what has happened is during this time too, a lot of South Africans are visiting us now, a lot of families. And as I say, because of the people that are nervous, you know, of travel and getting into hotels and in close environments with other people, I think villas is a really big product. And we match that with a product that we have in Sandton, but I'm not going to talk about Sandton because there is some wildlife around there, but certainly not.
Rob, specifically, can we talk, because a lot of the people watching may prefer self-catering because maybe they're keeping kosher or halal or etc. Where can you get self-catering facilities in your properties?
So Kruger Park Lodge, which is down in Hazyview, 100% self-catering property, and Elephant Point. You can either have it catered or self-catering. So either one of those. So it's Kruger Park Lodge or Elephant Point. So what I do want to move on to is, you know, everyone's had a lion story tonight, and everyone's got their lion and their preferred lion. And I think this is a really great story. And
so, Rob, while you tell that story, I'm going to put up the poll. If anyone wants the special offer that you're running at the moment, we're going to put up the poll and ask them just to vote yes if they want us to mail them or you to mail them the special offer that's happening at all your properties at the moment. And while you do that, Danny, we just need to be able to put on YouTube as well just Rob's details. So Rob, can you just tell us what your email is so we can stick it on YouTube so people can say, please send me the special offers?
So the easiest email to use is legacymarketing@legacyhotels.co.za. So it's legacymarketing@legacyhotels.co.za.
Cool, perfect. So tell us your lion story.
So we have a little lodge down in the Eastern Cape, in the Greater Addo area. So we're not part of Addo Elephant Park, but in the Greater Addo area. And everyone's aware that there was this rogue lion in the Karoo, and this rogue lion called Sylvester, which got out in the Karoo, and I think most people have heard of him, and he was all over the newspapers, and he was eating the farmers' cattle, and it was really a case where he was actually heading for disaster, and I think he was heading to be put down, unfortunately. So Gerard De Lange, our head game ranger and reserve manager at Kazuko, adopted Sylvester. And we've managed to rehabilitate him, but rehabilitate him to the point where he doesn't want to escape anymore. I think he's living a fantastic life. I think it's costing the reserve a huge amount of money right now because he hunts for fun. But I mean, that's his life. That's his life that he's been adopted. But we formed a coalition with him, and with Phyllis, another male lion. And then we introduced two female lions, and since then they've had kids, and it's quite a happy family story. And in conjunction with EWT, we have actually, the cubs have actually recently been moved to a new location. So we've got that project running down there. So Sylvester's a really great, I mean, he's a magnificent lion, and I tried to see if I could find a great picture of him while we were talking, but Gerard hasn't sent me. He's got some amazing pictures, and I couldn't get onto our drive to get the pictures because I'm at home, unfortunately. So yeah, he's a magnificent lion, and you know, he's very special to us, and a lot of people are actually wanting to go in to see him, to see this rogue lion that's now rehabilitated completely. Also in Kazuko, and in conjunction with EWT and another organization called Ashia, we are also busy with the cheetah project and cheetah wilding, which has been very successful to date. And you know, to enhance the population of cheetah, which, as we know, is an issue, and we've heard from Yolan, I mean, it is a problem. But they are on the app, and we're very much involved in those projects and have had some huge successes through a very natural way of doing things. And because we don't allow walking with animals, because that's never gonna end well, unfortunately, for the animals, more so than the humans, because they'll grow up in that environment. So down at Kazuko in the Eastern Cape, it's a 24 chalet lodge. It's small, boutique, and it's really worth a visit. It's just an amazing environment to go and see and to hear the stories and the stories that get told down there, which is fantastic. So yeah, we have quite a few lodge projects and that go on continuously. and we're looking at more at the moment to see what we can do in the South African environment, and we're hoping at some stage to be back in some other environments that we used to be in, some amazing places that have been spoken about today, because that's really our passion. As much as we run big hotels, we also run amazing lodges, and COVID has certainly shown us that the South African market, and I think we'll all agree on this forum, that the South African market loves the wild, and they couldn't wait to get back and come and see us and come and visit us and come and play in our environment. So yeah, it's been really fun, and that's probably what keeps us going right now, is seeing the joy of people and the joy of the South Africans enjoying their own products and not leaving the country. And but I noticed, because of the number of international people on the call, we can't wait to have you back too. I mean, it's pretty lonely. It's pretty lonely in some areas in South Africa right now. Probably Cape Town is very lonely right now. But yeah, certainly for wildlife, it's been amazing. And
well, Rob, I must tell you, I've been to 76 countries, and still my favorite place in the world is just to be in the African bush. And like you told us, there's a no-brainer. An hour and 45 minutes from Sandton, in a non-malarial area, you can be in magnificent accommodation for next to nothing. I mean, 1,000 rand per person per night, bed and breakfast in the amazing African bush. It's a no-brainer. We see that there, at least on the poll, there are about 140, 150 people who have already asked for details, plus the people who will be mailing you off YouTube as well. Rob, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We look forward to seeing you in all of your facilities. And tell me one thing, the Leonardo, is it open? It's the tallest building in Africa. You've got a facility in the Leonardo. Is it open and working?
It is open and working. Yes. Yeah. We tried 3 times to open it. We finally now achieved it because of what we've been through. It is open. It is the tallest residential building in Africa. And watch this space for those who want to come and visit Joburg. And within the next 3 months, we'll have one of the highest bars in the world above sea level opening on the top of that building. So we look forward to hosting you there. And Marlon, it's a different kind of photography, but I can tell you, if you come up there with your cameras, you'll get some amazing sights of Johannesburg. I can tell you that. We'll do our latest sightings in Sandton. I think that's quite a good idea too. It could be quite fun.
Count me in. I see we've got hi from Hilton Head in South Carolina, hi from Connecticut, they're saying to us. Joe says to us, can't wait to be back in the bush in South Africa. Jerusalem is an amazing place to live, but the wildlife is apparently sorely lacking. So, Yolan, we've heard some amazing stories tonight. There's good news, there's bad news. What should we be most proud of people who love the bush, of people who want to see thriving wildlife in this country? What should we be most proud of as South Africans?
I think quite a lot of your panelists have touched on it already this evening, and I think that number one, it is that heritage that we all carry with us all the time, that no matter where we go in the world, we believe that Africa is part of us and that we take it with us, and that we're always ambassadors for African wildlife and the bush. And I think what's also very important, what's come across this evening, is this emphasis on keeping it wild. I mean, Marlon made the point on the chat site as well that he prefers photographing animals in their wild, in their habitat, promoting the natural environments in which these animals still form part of a natural, healthy ecosystem. Later sightings is all about that. And I think that in South Africa, while there is a tendency towards losing some of that, where we're starting to see an increase in captive wildlife, I think most of us, still given the chance, would rather go to the bush and, like we've said, experience the noises, the sounds, the smells, the stars, all those other things that come with it. And then I think also to Rob's last point, mentioning partnerships, South Africa has had a history of being a global conservation leader. And all of it has come on the basis of incredible partnerships, which are fairly unique. You might not know this, but the rest of the world hasn't necessarily engaged in the kind of partnerships that we've seen in South Africa. So, for example, between private landowners, private game ranchers, the public sector, governments, etc., communities, as we've seen with the Mdluli example. We have an incredibly rich diversity of interests in the conservation space. And as a result of that, we see coming together of so many different parties that are trying to contribute in their way. And the tourism sector that visits these places and makes them economically sustainable is also an incredibly important partner. So people like yourselves that just want to visit the bush and enjoy that experience are very much part of that partnership. And I think that that's one of the key strengths that we have in South Africa that makes our conservation cocktail work so well.
So I'm going to ask you, Yolan, in a second what we can do to help. But while we do that, we'd love to. We've had hundreds of people on tonight on Zoom, on YouTube, all over the place. We'd love to hear from them. We'd love to know what they're thinking. We'd love to know what videos they loved, what photos they loved, what stories they loved about all of this, because part of the magic of the African bush is to be able to sit around a fire at night and swap stories of what you saw or what you think you saw during the day, and to decide who's telling the truth and maybe who's making up some stories a little. But all the stories you've heard tonight are remarkable and true, and we'd love to hear from you. So please use both the YouTube comment section as well as the Zoom comment chat section. We'd love to hear from you. But Yolan, how can we help more? How can we make sure this is sustainable? How can we make sure that we as a nation, from a tourism perspective, from a wildlife, from a conservation perspective, absolutely thrive? Allow us to be activists. How do we do that?
So I think one of the key things is that I think that people need to get informed and educated about the truth, the sort of the truth behind conservation. And we've seen the power of social media in terms of, for example, later sightings. We've seen millions and millions of people participating in conservation. But the downside of social media can also be that we see this proliferation of mistruths, and we're starting to see lots of stories spread about, for just a small example, the whole myth that was spread for so many years about lions and lion parks all being used for conservation, and people going there and cuddling cubs and thinking these animals are being released into the wild. And unfortunately, that directed a lot of attention, funding, resources, and attention away from the real issues facing wildlife. So the big thing that we encourage people to do is get educated, try and look through all of the nonsense that's out there. Try not be suckered into some of the marketing that goes with the wrong side of perhaps the wildlife story that can happen. And when you're starting to support, like we've seen tonight, lodges that are in open, wild, sustainable systems, that's really what we want to see, is where tourism actually supports job creation, supports wild ecosystems, supports the community story in conservation, which we believe has a long way to go. And please, get in your cars, go out there, because tourism is the biggest job creator, certainly in the Build Back Better campaign, as we've seen post-COVID. The potential for tourism to be the biggest job creator in South Africa is certainly on government's agenda. And so we need people to be getting out there and supporting our parks and supporting these initiatives that support wildlife in the wild. And then obviously support your local NGOs. But again, I would caution and say do your homework. You need to really find out who are the established organizations and supporting conservation and maintaining species in the wild. One of the other side of these videos we've seen tonight, we've spoken about it, while it might be gory and heartbreaking, it's the truth, it's wild nature. That's actually what lions need to be doing. That's actually what animals need to be doing. We don't want to see them in captivity. So we would encourage people to support those NGOs whose goal is to support wild systems and free-ranging, healthy biodiversity, species, and ecosystems.
So we're going to come back in a second. I want to ask you a story, because I know I came to you through Lauren Gillis, one of my favorite people in the world. She runs the Relay Trust, and they do bracelets like the one that I'm wearing at the moment. And in fact, when I go to international conferences, I buy up a few hundred bracelets, Save the Rhino or one of the conservation bracelets. And I use it as, instead of just a business card, we actually stick our business cards in. We give it to people and we start conversations, business conversations with, we're from South Africa, let's tell you about saving the rhino. And then we start the business conversation after that. And the responses that we get from people are just absolutely astounding. And year after year, we go back to the same conference and people come and say, I'm still wearing the bracelet that you gave me about the rhino 2 years ago. And so I want to talk about that in 1 second. But Rob, I see we've had a number of people. There's a villa product at Pilanesberg as well, these luxury villas that have been built fairly close to Bakubung. Can you tell us about that? You're just on mute.
Apologies. It's late now.
We'll get you all to bed in 5 minutes, I promise.
A couple of years ago, we developed a product at Bakubung, and we marketed as part of Bakubung as a product. But I see there was definitely a request in terms of talk a little bit more about it. So I spoke about Elephant Point and the villas that we have there. At Bakubung, we have the same villas that are available for use or rent or nightly stays, and they're again 2, 3, and 4 bedroom villas overlooking, again self-catering, again can be catered. So it's another product offering that we've added to our product in the Pilanesberg. So we have about 4 of them at the moment. A lot of the owners there don't want to give them to us to rent out because they want to keep them for themselves because of the proximity. But a lot of those, we've got 4 or 5 at the moment that are available to rent. And I tell you what, it's quite often, we can't say home from home because it's home to the next level home. And that's what they really stand for. So they're also available on the websites, and I see we've just posted that web address again. So that's really great. Thanks.
Great. So, Yolan, before we come back to you, and we're going to finish this in 5 minutes, I'm just going to ask Danny for a favor because I'm getting so many messages from people who said, I want the discount, but I didn't get the chance to vote. I want someone to contact me. Danny, can I just ask you to pull up do a very quick poll to say if you haven't voted in any of the polls, but you still want someone to contact you with the specials, these R1,000 per person per night at Bakubung or KwaMaritane bed and breakfast, or those amazing deal that Terry told us about Mdluli in the Kruger Park with an extra 10% discount off the amazing rates already offered. So if you do that and you haven't voted already, we're just going to give you one last opportunity to vote because my phone has been flooded with people saying, please, how do I get onto this list as well? So Yolan, back to you. Tell us about the Relate Trust and your relationship with Lauren Gillis and the Relate Trust.
Thanks, Holly. I think Lauren is many people's favorite people, and she started the Relate bracelets. It was the first charity initiative based on the beaded bracelets that was done in South Africa. So it really is the original one. And what's remarkable about that project, it's not just the proceeds that go to numerous charities, ours obviously included, but it's also the entire manufacturing process is done by unemployed people who get a chance to not only earn an income, but also get skills development in the process. And what I love is that they've really thought of every possible way to maximize social development and economic development through this project. So, for example, I remember going to their factory one day and having a look at it at the end of the day when lots and lots of beading had been done and thousands of little beads had fallen to the floor. They were all swept up and put into bags, and they were all then separated out into different colors the next morning by people that came from different backgrounds. For example, some of the mentally challenged children at schools down the road, and they also had an opportunity to earn an income. So they've really learned the correct way, we believe, of doing a social development project that really supports job creation, skills development, and has all of the proceeds going to bona fide charities, ourselves obviously included. And they've been supporting the anti-malarial campaign for many, many years, I think well over 10 years, and contributed to saving thousands of lives in Africa. So the Relate bracelet is the original one. It has the little tag on it with the R, and we would encourage people when you are buying these beaded bracelets to make sure that they are Relate, because we can certainly testify to the fact that it all goes towards a number of really good social and environmental causes around Africa.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank everyone for being on the panel tonight, but I would like to pose a question to everyone for a 10-second answer. And I want to know if there was one wildlife experience anywhere in the world, anything that you haven't done that you still are desperate to do. What is it that you would actually like to do? And Chris, I'm going to start with you to answer that question first. 10, 15 seconds. What would you still love to do?
I would personally still want to go to the Masai Mara, and it's still on my bucket list, and I would like to go and experience that.
Okay, that having watched the migration myself, my regret is that it was just too expensive to go up in a balloon, but to watch the migration is one of the greatest experiences you could ever have in life. Marlon?
Howie, I got a glimpse of a snow leopard. I am at 1.5 km away through a spotting scope. It changed my life, and I would love to get a photograph of that cat that will make people just sit up. Good. It's an amazing experience. So for me, to track down that great ghost of the Himalayas.
Okay, so while Nadav is answering, the poll is up. You can vote for either of them. If you haven't voted already and you'd like someone to contact you with the specials, please just click there and we'll make sure that we get you the email. Nadav, what do you still want to do in life?
I I actually just want to say exactly what Chris and Marlon have said. Like the migration, definitely want to see it, and just how fun Marlon made it sound, like tracking down a leopard that's invisible. I love tracking, finding them, and that just sounded really fun. So it's definitely something that I added tonight on my bucket list.
Amazing. Yolan, from your side?
Well, I almost feel boring now by saying the migration, because I've actually had the opportunity to sit in the middle of it, and I would like to go back and spend more time doing that, because I think the one thing that never comes across in any photography is the smells and sounds, and that was just overwhelming, was the smells and sounds. So I would love to go back and experience that again. But seeing as the migration's been covered by everybody else, I'll change that, and I'll say definitely I would love to follow a pack of wolves across Yellowstone, 2 weeks uninterrupted, backpacking, just walking with them. It's always a species that's had a big part of my heart, and I would love that experience.
Rob?
Well, I mean, I have to say I've had the privilege of doing Serengeti and Ngorongoro and doing hot air balloons. So we'll leave that one. But I think after hearing about polar bears, I think that's an option. And definitely the gorillas. I'd love to go and see the gorillas. And so that would definitely be on the list of things to do, because I think that's quite special to go and do. And with the wildlife we see in our country, I think to go and see something different like the gorillas, or to go and see the tigers, or to go and see the polar bears can only be an amazing experience.
Terry, from your side, give us your wildest wildlife fantasy.
So bizarrely, I've always had a fascination with panda bears. So I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe Marlon, you could give me some ideas after this on what that experience would entail. But certainly, Howard, closer to home, I've actually never done a bushwalk. Keeping it really simple. I mean, you see all the things that have been talked about tonight and incredible footage. I think when you go on a bushwalk, you've done the self-drive, you've done the ride, the drive with rangers, but I think you appreciate the bush in a completely different way when you're on foot. And that's something that I actually haven't done. So hopefully next time I'm down at the lodge, which I hope will be in a few weeks' time, that's definitely on my list.
Terry, speak to me about the pandas. I've been to Chengdu in China. In fact, I posted last week on Instagram a picture of one of the pandas I saw in Chengdu. I'm amazed no one has actually mentioned the Okavango swamps, because that is to go in a little dugout canoe through the swamps is one of the greatest experiences you would ever have. And if I can put my fantasy down, I believe it's in Churchill, Alaska. And Marlon, maybe you'll be able to correct me, but there's a time of year where the bears wander through the actual town. And that must be just something so spectacular to actually watch. So if you're watching us this evening and you have a wildlife fantasy, please put it in the chat. We really would like to know. If you've seen something that no one's mentioned that you think someone should actually experience in life, please put that in the chat as well. With that, we've been going for 2 hours and 22 minutes. Thank you so much to all of our speakers for joining us this evening. More importantly, thank you to the thousands of people who've watched us tonight. Africa is so special to all of us. There's a part of Africa within all of our souls. The fact that we could share that all tonight and to share it with people around the world is really one of the greatest privileges I think we have as a nation and as a people. So don't forget, we started in the beginning of this, we started our chat by reminding you that you should vote in our shofar blowing competition. You should vote for Jewish Achieve Awards, that if you're looking for a job, that we can help you with free advertising in that. If you would like a business question asked by any titan of business, we'd love to help you in that as well. And Danny's going to post all of that into the chat section as well. So you'll be able to click on any of those links, and we'll leave the chat open for 5 or 10 minutes afterwards so people can continue to provide us with this information. And I'm looking some of people's experiences and fantasies that they're just posting online now on both YouTube and in Zoom. And it's truly absolutely astounding. But that is all part of the magic of the world that we live in. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We'll see you again next week. To all of our guests, it's really been such an honor to share the evening with you. Good night, and hopefully we'll see you in the bush in the not too distant future.
Thank you, Howie.
Thanks, Howie. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.